glad that the brothers on the rise now. Endless celebrations all in my house. Levitating now, I'm super duper fly now. London boy, but DC where I reside now. Put the time in while you always yelling time out. And for quit it, cause I know I'm coming with it. You were sitting, you were wishing I was handling my business. Now I got the ball like Harry Potter playing Quidditch. And my business is humongous, you would think that happens in there. Damn man, I'm all that, yeah, I'm all that. Working for that whip, yeah, that what you call that. I'ma blow up in the summer, have him yelling fall back. And I've always been ahead like an effing ball cap. Man, I came in the game like, whoa. Got a couple chains on me cause I like gold. They told me I'm the best and I told them I know. Cause when I'm in your town, every ticket I sold. Yeah, they saying I'm the man. Facts, bro. Facts, lot of haters. Tell me where they at, though. I'm the new pop, all I do is rap, though. Want me on your song, throw a couple stacks, yo. Woo. Everybody wanna do the same thing. Yup. That's why we ain't on the same page. No. Do my own thing, and I maintain. Woo. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. I'm going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. Yeah, I'm going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. I'm going mainstream. Mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. Yup. I'm going mainstream. Damn. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. So I'm going mainstream.
Hello and welcome to the Xbox Infinite podcast. We've got a lot to get through this week. It's been a pretty busy week. Lots of news to talk about off the back of a pretty quietly starting week. But before we go to introductions, I'm just going to go straight to Umbra. for something that's a little bit more somber and serious. Umbra?
Yeah, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you all for coming through. We want to give a special, foreword to our buddy and pal, Spooky Sprocket. And, of course, to Trinity, his fiancée, who was in the chat under the Rockin' Warrior Gamecast. And if you guys aren't following her, please do as well. Spooky has been going through a lot. I don't want to dive into the details, but from what we do know, he's battling, being in a coma at the current moment. So we're all pulling for him, and we just wanted to send him love and send Trinity, strength and encouragement and such to her, as well as to his family and his aunt who posts under his account currently. So thank you, Trinity, for being here and your grace and strength in general in dealing with all of this. I know it can't be easy, and we are all hurting by it. Believe me when I tell you. Like, I had conversations with a few buddies in chat and even on the phone where they were in tears, and even myself, just going through the things I've been going through. So it's definitely struck a chord with us. So we are very hopeful for Spooky, and our prayers are with him and you guys in general.
Yeah, thanks, Umbra. Yeah, definitely. My thoughts and prayers go out to Spooky as well. He's a champion, fellow Aussie. So it always strikes a chord too. Yeah, pretty sad to hear what happened, but hopefully he'll come through soon as possible. I'll move on to introductions because we've got some pretty big guests this week. We have, I'll go through. Jedi, welcome back as always. You missed the last show because you had some stuff going on, so welcome back to the show, Pete. How you doing, mate? Pete's good. And then we'll go straight to Umbra, we've already heard from.
Hey, thank you for welcoming back, Pete. This is Peter.
And then we'll go straight to our most massive. I'm starstruck and nervous, and it's crazy that he came. And thank you for being here, Asa. How you doing, man?
You just stop with the starstruck thing. You asked me to come on this, and you were so timid. Of course I'll come on. I'd love to come here and talk some games. I will just say, I don't want to bring it down or anything, but the Spooky Sprocket story, as it were, I saw that break on Twitter as well. And I only know Spooky from various chats on various podcasts, and it's been a horrible story to follow. So yeah, thoughts with him, thoughts with you, Trinity Warrior. Really hoping for a recovery there, obviously.
Yeah, I really hope he pulls through, man. That guy's a champion. I've spoken to him many times in spaces, and you always see him through the chats. And he always used to come along to here. I think when we only had 2 people in the chat, so that was great. Yeah, it's a bit of a sad thing to hear. You don't want to hear that. Gladiator, you have rebranded. For people who don't know, we had Gladiator back on show. I think it was 4 shows ago under a different name. So I've got to ask you, Gladiator, why the name change? Why the rebranding? What's going on there?
Look, let's keep it nice and simple. When you knew me as Gaming Since Nest, that was more of my anonymous account. Something I joined in Twitter that had nothing attached to it. But now, after I spend enough time in Twitter, I'm like, I'm tired of the double lives, because the Gladiator is my true form. It is what I've made content with in the past, so I'm just bringing the brands together. So thanks for having me on the show, brother.
Man, we always love having you here. Always love having you here. Well, let's get straight into it. And there's been a little bit of movement in Xbox Studios this week. I don't know if anyone's picked this up. I haven't heard it anywhere else. But the Playground Games co-founder is leaving the studio, which off the back of Forza 5, that massive hit, you would think that he would want to stick around with that kind of success. So I don't really know what it says about behind the scenes. Umbra, what do you think, mate? Do you think there's a little bit of discord with Xbox Studios? Do you think we might be seeing an Xbox One era shift, or do you think that Microsoft is not doing up to their old tricks and pushing people around again?
I don't. And typically I'm an optimistic kind of guy, so I don't typically jump to the negative. But I know that the narrative did shift to that for some people. At least, our hooved brothers tried to push that narrative. At least I know for sure.
Yeah.
But Rayburn, he's been in game development and gaming for decades, man. I mean, he started back. He's kind of a low key legend when you really know it, when you look into him. He started with game development back on a Commodore 64 with the Equalizer, right? He moved on to Toka Championship, Dirt, Grid, and then now finally the final Forza Horizon series, right? So he's been doing this for a while, and he's been working on the Forza games for 12 years. He's the co-founder of PG, but then they have Trevor Williams coming up, who was formerly the GM as the studio head. So I don't think it's anything negative. I think it's just a matter of it was time for him to move on, or at least to just retire in general. That's what it seems like, because there's also no news of him going to a new studio.
Yeah. Yeah. A co-founder, though, is pretty serious. That's a pretty serious movement. Something that you've cultivated and grown since its inception. That's be pretty hard to let go of. Pete, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Risk. No, Peter is not here yet, guys.
Pete's dropped out. We'll go to the hater. We'll go to the Gladdy hater. What do you think's going on behind the scenes there? Oh, Pete.
Listen, let's keep this real. There's problems going on behind the scenes. Okay. Yeah, exactly, Alexa. Alexa had to say it too. No, but here's the honest truth without being facetious. Usually when people do leave, they kind of also put a statement along with it. And I don't think we really got this from Gavin this time around. I mean, if you compare this to news of somebody else leaving as well too, that person was able to put that statement out and talk about their time with the studio and everything. So it could be some disagreements. I mean, it seems like very respectful, kind of disconnect between them, but I'm not gonna read into it and say one way or another. But usually when it's a very good terms, that person does come out and they say it was great to work for this company and all that hoopla. And I haven't seen anything from Gavin in this departure.
No, yeah, neither. That's what kind of gave me a little bit of cause for concern, especially with the development of Fable.
You guys got me back?
Playground Games. Yeah, we got you back, mate. We got you back. Talking about Fable, Jedi, me and you are big fans. What do you think's going on behind the scenes there at Playground? Anything at all, or just nice, chill?
Look, I think it was just time for Gavin to move on, to be honest. He started the company Playground, I think, 12 years ago. He moved over from Codemasters, I think, and basically took the mantle on and built the best racing franchise that we have in gaming today. I look more into it. I don't think there's anything there. I hope there's nothing there. Trevor Williams, who, came over from Codemasters with him, will be taking over the mantle. So I'm hoping there's nothing to see here. Yeah, huge loss to Playground Games, but Gavin Rayburn's been in the industry, forever. So it'll be a huge loss to Playground Games. Look, if whatever his future holds for him, I'm sure it'll be great.
Yeah, still a bit of cause for concern. Asa, what do you think, mate?
I am not remotely concerned. You have to remember that Playground Games were acquired by Microsoft. That man is rolling in cash. He's got what he needed to do in terms of his career aspirations. That's happened, that's done, and he's stuck around and he's released Forza Horizon 5, which is presumably what he was passionate about. He's seen it through to conclusion. He's been working on Forza for ages and ages and ages, and now he wants to kick back and relax or take on a new challenge. How can you begrudge him that?
Yeah, I suppose when you're rolling in cash, you can kind of do whatever you want. But then there is something else that happened in the same week, and the 343 narrative director left. Now, that may be unrelated. It might be related, but it also might be very related to the Halo story, which we all know Gaz is not very keen on, and I'm pretty sure we're going to find out how not keen on the story he is very, very soon. Asa, what do you think that's got to do with the story? What do you think of the story of Halo? I loved it, personally.
I personally loved it as well. yes, Gaz has had this video in the works for a little while. He's going to upset some people, I can tell you that much. But that's Gaz. He doesn't mind upsetting some people. For me, I understand criticism in the way that they took a leap from Halo 4 and 5 to the point that they're telling a story in Halo Infinite. But I also think it's the best story that they've told in the Halo game for a long, long time. And it's really well delivered. I think for all the time that people have been saying that Microsoft needs to take a look at Sony's first party and make a sad dad game, I think with Halo, they did look at Sony's first party and they've delivered a lot of that kind of personal storytelling. The character development between the weapon and the chief is so well done. So I can understand criticisms if you're a big Halo fan and you're looking at the overarching story and you're seeing the gaps and saying, I want to know about those gaps. I want to know, why has this happened to Cortana off screen? I want to know what's going on. I get the criticism there, but for me, no, they told a really good story. They delivered it really well. The narrative director leaving, I mean, it's industry churn. It's interesting timing when that narrative is not complete because Halo is a 10-year project and such. So how much of that's already storyboarded? How much of their work they were happy or unhappy with, whether Jason's come in and upset the apple cart, it's impossible to say from the outside. There's more likely to be something in this than there is with the playground director.
Yeah, look, I think you've hit
that.
something on the nail on the head there, because my personal thoughts are that if you look at the story, it seems to have been chopped up. I think there's been a lot of that story pulled out, and a lot of the explanation of the whys and wherefores have been removed. Because if you go through and watch there's not that many cutscenes within it. There's not that much story within it. And it seems to be a lot's missing. There's a lot of questions that aren't answered. I completely agree with Gaz on that. And I do think that Joe Staten might have had something to do with that. And that might have pissed off that narrative director, to not put too fine a point on it. Jedi?
Yes, mate. I think that Jason is cleaning house a little bit. I don't think they're done with the story, so it's a little bit weird that the narrative director is leaving. I think there's more to this one, like Asa said, than there is to Playground Games. There's still a lot of story to be told in Halo Infinite. I think a lot of it got pushed back due to time constraints. I think Jason basically came in and said, no, we have to leave this out. We have to leave so-and-so out. I mean, it leaves a lot of it open. I can't wait for the campaign DLC that they bring out. I can't wait for the story arc to progress further. But like you said, I think that in this particular Halo, there was a lot less cutscenes than we're used to in Halo. So I do find it a little bit strange that the narrative director has left when this is meant to be a 10-year project. In saying that, I think the story in Halo was told quite well. I actually liked a lot of the parts of the story. I like where they're going with the Banished. I like where they're going with the weapon. I like the humanizing of Chief. I don't particularly like the pilot, but yeah, most of it's done really well. I just think there needs to be more to it than that.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. Gladiator, I'm going to go to you because I think I know some of your thoughts about Halo. You go, give it to us straight.
Yeah, so this is where I was feeling that maybe this is a little bit opposite. It could be that they just wanted to take it to a little different direction, and he's already done his part, but he has put tweets out on this. He has talked about how wonderful it is for him, quoting him directly. It was a difficult decision for him, almost putting it as it was on him to make that choice to really leave and move on. Now, with that being said, he's moving over to Riot, and Riot already is on a big upswing. Because anything that they're doing over there, he's moved to research and development for them. And if they're going to keep building on the League of Legends property, which it just gets hotter and hotter, especially after Arcane. If anybody has seen that show, the Netflix show, and they got MMOs coming out, they got a fighting game coming out, they have a lot of great projects going on there. I feel that makes a lot of sense, that there's a lot of opportunity and room for growth over there, and maybe he's seeing that. So it's a greener pastures kind of move.
You think? You don't think it had anything to do with the a lot of the story being cut by Joe Staten at all?
I'm sure there's some of it, right? But I do think he left on his own terms.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to co-sign that. And looking into it, I thought the exact same thing. Funny enough, because he's now moving on to R&D with Riot Games, who, by the way, if you all don't know, is now owned by Tencent. Just to throw it out there, since we had a discussion about Tencent buying up everything, but the last show at least. But just, I agree with you guys. I think all of you all hit exactly what I would think on the subject. I think it was just him moving on. I think he wants to be more creative and do things outside of Halo. And in R&D, he can come up with new concepts for games and things like that. And then maybe he wants to spread his wings. I will say the timing feels odd because it's a 10-year plan and we don't have a full idea of where they're going yet, right, with the story. But just to touch on things, I think when people are feeling the way they feel about Halo narratively, those things that are unanswered were done on purpose, right? Not having the exact details of what happened to Cortana, that was purposeful because it's a 10-year plan. So they're going to elaborate on that in future DLC, I believe. I think what they'll probably do, at least what I would say they should do, is shift perspectives to different characters that we can play as, such as Fireteam Osiris with Locke and them, or with maybe ODSTs we can play as, showing them departing the Infinity and landing on the Halo. They can do things
Blue
like
team,
that.
More of a starting as well.
Yep, Lasky, so on and so forth. And I think that's what they'll do because I think it's purposeful. They're not dumb. They know that things are kind of left, in a very what's the word I want to use here? Ambiguous way. The way we can people would kind of come up with their own narratives and thoughts for what happened. And the little audio cues they gave us with the audio logs we find, that's just the tip of the iceberg. We have so much more to explore. They're going to give us different biomes, things of that nature. I think all that's coming in the future. So I wouldn't put too much stock in that. I definitely believe it's just a matter of him. Even his tweet seemed very happy, right? And I think it was just a matter of him wanting to do more. And like Gladiator pointed out, Arcane is a derivative of the League of Legends. So they just got a lot of good stuff going on. I think he just wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Someone pointed out, I think it was Grum, that maybe he just wanted to be closer to home and family as well. I mean, these moves can happen because of personal reasons, so that's something to take into account too. It does just seem very odd timing, and especially with the controversy around the story not being... I wouldn't give it 100% for that story. I don't think there's 100% of that story in the game. But I definitely look forward to more, especially with that 10-year plan. And like you said, I think we've only seen the tip of the iceberg. But moving on to a bit of Sony news, which is pretty different for us, being an Xbox show. PSVR 2 is coming. The specs are released. Look, to me, it looked pretty amazing. I'd be keen for it. What I'm worried about is the price. And I'm also worried about the amount of games that they can pump out for their VR. How many studios have they got? 17 studios. So how many of those studios are going to be working on VR games? Again, it's that question of, is the market there? I mean, the game that they showed, which is very, very short, looked good, looked great. But the other thing that I'm concerned about is wires in the living room. I think Phil Spencer said he wanted to wait until we're at that point where we could Wi-Fi the headset to the console. And I don't think we're there yet. So I would imagine that there was wires, but I didn't actually see anything. I looked into that and I couldn't find anything, so I could be wrong. Asa, you know a bit about VR. You're a bit of a VR buff. You excited about this?
I am. Definitely. Like you say, I love VR. If there's anything that I do cheerlead for out of all of the consoles and things, it is VR. It's got its like underdog story going because it's got a lot of naysayers, but I love VR, and the PlayStation VR2 headset specs that they released are bang on where they need to be. You mentioned the wire there. It does have a wire. It has a single wire listed in the spec, a USB-C connection, which is pretty interesting in itself.
Could be a charger.
I want to know. No. It's definitely for the data. It is a single connection that you need to have it plugged into the PlayStation, at least out of the box.
Right.
I kind of suspect that there might be a wireless adapter down the line, but I think because I want to know where everyone else sits on VR before talking too much about it, go around the room.
All right,
curious.
got that. Before I do go around the room, Mr. Joanna Dark made a good point. Also, will PSVR1 games be compatible with PSVR2? That's a very good point. You would imagine that
You know what's funny?
if they are, they're going
It's
to
funny.
cost a bit more. $10.
Yeah. That's the funniest part because he's right. Like the speculation is, I'm pretty sure there will be, but will you have to pay for it? That seems to be the modus operandi for Sony. So I think he might have a point there.
Are
They
you,
couldn't do that. They couldn't.
Y'all are
No. They won't do that. Of course, PSVR1 games will be compatible with PSVR2. I mean, PS4 games are compatible with PS5. Of course, they'll be compatible. I mean, yes, when you go back further to the PS3 generation, PS2, PS1, they're not compatible. But that's because of an architectural problem. Yeah, I mean, PlayStation the PlayStation games are now backwards compatible, and definitely PSVR1 games will be compatible with PSVR2. I mean, that's a given.
They won't.
What were you trying to say, Gladiator? You were
They
trying
won't,
to
Asa.
I
They
heard
won't,
you.
Asa.
go Gladiator.
You heard me because you was trying to slander that price increase right away. Look, from 1 to 1, it's always been the thing, right? Now, if they're going to do, all right, so I'll open this one up to discussion. If they're going to do, because the headset itself actually has kind of like haptic features on it, and the controllers have haptics in it. So who knows? Maybe they might do an upgrade, a paid upgrade for some of those games that they add those features, like they're doing with the PlayStation games, right? Maybe I'll give you that in some world, right? But from 1 to another, 1 to 1, they're not going to charge for playing it. Come on.
Okay. I mean, we
I
all
just want to ask
Asa
why he thinks that.
to it. I mean, look at the controller situation. Oh, it's DualSense, so that can't be compatible with the PS4. Or now the PS4 controllers can't be compatible with the PS5. I wouldn't put it past them, man. I'm just saying. I think Mr. Joanna Dark has a good point there. You never know.
You never know. That's true.
You willing to put
just
money
wanna
on that?
ask,
You want to put up $50 on that?
I'm going to say to you, Gladiator, right now that they are definitely going to charge people to upgrade their games. 110%. You know that's happening. And then the other thing is, when they do charge people, what they're charging you for is something you've already paid for. And we've had this conversation many times, I'm fairly sure, on Twitter. We'll move to Asa. Jedi, yep, sorry, mate. Asa?
I'll put $10 toward it,
why
Gladiator.
he thinks they won't be compatible with PSVR1 games won't be compatible with the PSVR2. I just thought that would have been a given.
You'd think it would. Yes. I don't want to sound like I'm defending Sony here, but it won't work without updates on their part, and Sony don't do updates for free. They just don't. So the problem is the difference in the tracking system and the controllers, and it might sound simple, but a lot of those PlayStation VR games are primarily made around the DualShock 4, and they literally display a DualShock 4 in-game. And for a normal, when you're playing in VR and you can't actually see the world, it's a bit screwy. I don't know if there's swearing on here or not, I can't remember, but it's a bit screwy.
You can say whatever you want, brother.
Yeah,
at the very least, they're going to need to update it to properly represent the controllers that you've got and the freedom in your hands. They're going to need to change it from outside-in tracking to inside-out tracking, and they're going to charge for it. Not only that, they've got an opportunity to charge for it. When does Sony turn that down?
Exactly.
Yeah, when would they turn it down? That's the point. I think Gladiator, in his lust for hooves, kind of forgets who we're talking about here. Now, if it was Microsoft, you might have a point. I think they would kind of swallow that cost. I don't think Sony will. I think they'll find a way to try to bleed their gamers. I'm just being real.
All right, so
really hope
$10.
that's not the case.
They do need content.
I hope that's the case.
So here's the
$10
thing.
is also an average upgrade for Sony. I'll bet you that.
So we'll do a $10 bet that I say they won't do it. Number 2, there's even games that exist in the PC where it would have done outside in tracking that they work perfectly fine with inside out tracking. So that already is a moot point. Then you also look at the fact that also a lot of games that exist on the PC side of things have icons of different controllers, but if you use different kind of headsets, they work perfectly fine. So that difference that's being talked about won't affect it from working from one to another. That's not a thing that's going to be a problem because there's already examples of it working perfectly fine.
Yeah,
so I'm going to be happy taking your money, Umbra.
When you talk about that, why couldn't they do cloud saves? That should have worked. That should have been compatible immediately, but it wasn't.
It's always something. It's always an excuse when it's Sony. Oh well, they didn't have the infrastructure. Oh, they don't have the money to do this. But then we see these new announced cars they're coming out with, and we see all these TVs and all. Where's all the money going to, Gladiator? Tell me why can't Sony do so many things, but they're a multi-billion-dollar company, and yet they have to continue bleeding their fans. Tell me why. Tell me why you're for the flogging, if you will, of PlayStation fans, and why do you defend such heinous acts against them? I don't get it. I mean, we have the pro-consumer Xbox, and of course the heinous Nintendo, but Nintendo doesn't have for theirs. But why is it that you will gloss over such ridiculousness? I don't get it, Gladiator. Please enlighten us. Did you put on new hooves?
Listen, it comes down to one reason and one reason only. They have games that I want to play. And if they hold the keys to that castle, they're going to charge what they want to charge. Is it something that I wish that they were a little more pro-consumer? Absolutely. The same way I wish Nintendo was a little more pro-consumer. But on that same token, I'm not going to act here and sit and pretend that Microsoft's not doing these moves because they want to promote their system, right? That's the beauty of a competitive land field, that you're going to have some people push and do things and whatnot. But in the end of the day, there's a lot of things I can say on the Sony side that they're doing great as well. But I just want to leave it at that. The reason is because they have games that I want to play. And if I want to play them, I have to join their ecosystem.
There's a couple of really good.
I'll defer to Asa on the technical side of thing. I don't know too much about those technical specifics, but what I did want to say is, given the specs of the new PSVR2, 90 to 100 hertz, OLED, HDR, this is going to be an expensive piece of machinery. I'm thinking $600 US, maybe $850 Australian. If you're going to ask people to pay that much money for a piece of kit that isn't necessary, let's face it, it's still a niche market. You would have to give them the ability to play games that they've already purchased, PSVR1 games immediatally. Wouldn't you? That would just make sense.
Here's another question that's pretty prudent as well, especially considering the current environment in the past year. Mr. Joanna Dark says, do you guys think that Sony will also publish PSVR games to PC to also get some rev out of the Steam VR market? A very good question, and probably a smart move. And my personal feeling is that they should, and that they will, considering the current environment. Asa, do you reckon that they'll start publishing these games straight to PC?
Yeah, not necessarily day and date. I think they'll handle it in the same way as they do their other PlayStation games, and every PlayStation game more or less is going to PC, including PlayStation VR.
Ooh. Yeah, look. I will say right now, I'm going to say this again, I think I've said this in the show before, Wolverine will be day and date, all right? That's going to be 3 years away, maybe 4, day and date. I'm saying it now.
Are we putting $10 on that one?
$10, yeah.
Putting $10? All right, we'll put $10 on that too.
Oh, no, he's trying to look. He's change your name from Gladiator to Gladipator. But
that's right.
But no, to touch on what Pete said, I think the $500 to $600 range is probably probable. How much, by the way, did they charge for the PSVR 1? How much was that? Does anyone know?
I think at the moment it's 450 Australian. So what's that, about 250? It's 650 Australian, brand new.
Sheesh.
Yeah, so 650 Australian. So to you guys, I guess that's in the 400 range, 450 range.
Yeah, so I think Pete is right there. It's got way better specs, obviously, too, right? 2000 by 2040 resolution per eye, up from 960 by 1080. It's 4K OLED display, HDR support in 110 degree FOV at 120 hertz. That's the previous one had 120 hertz too, to be fair. It has foveated. When they started making up like different names like this, it's special.
They love it.
Foveated rendering, which lessens the details of assets in your peripheral. I wrote all this down, so I wanted to read it because I'm like, I didn't write all this down for nothing. Headset feedback with a built-in motor, 3D audio tech and haptic feedback, and the now dubbed PSVR2 Sense controller. And it's also got a single cord setup, like Asa was talking about earlier. So I think that makes it much easier to have to deal with all those cords.
Yeah, where does that cord run to, though? Does that cord run to the headset? And the other thing is, I was thinking about, to touch on what you're saying here with and what Pete's saying is with the cost of the thing. Will they take a hit and lose money on a VR headset when the software probably can't make up the difference?
Doubtful.
Yeah.
This is Sony. Microsoft has the pockets to do that. Sony does too, to a degree, don't get me wrong. I just don't think they would swallow that hit like that. I don't think they would do that.
Well, look, we got fun speculation in the chat here, and they asked a question the other day on their show. I'm pretty sure they asked this question, does Xbox need VR? And at the moment, personally, I'd say it'd be a waste of time. That's not to say that they shouldn't dip their toes into the market. I think they are dipping their toes in the market with the HTC headset, and they work with the Oculus as well. So they've obviously got the technology back of house, and they've got the software back of house. So they are dipping their toes in, but they're not outlaying a lot of money to bring something to market. And I think that's probably a smart move. Personally, Jedi, what do you reckon? Do you reckon they should pump out a VR? We've lost Jedi again. And we'll go to Gladiator. Do you want to see a VR headset from Xbox, or would you rather that was the domain of PC and PS5 only?
I'm going to move and just say no, because I don't think they have what it takes to focus on two projects like that. I think they need to just keep building the value on Game Pass, and make sure that they're hitting their marks, which is they want one new game per quarter. So guess what? I mean, I'm perfectly fine with that, and I think Xbox is doing well with what their strategy is.
Fair enough. Asa, would you like to see... I mean, I'll be honest and say I wouldn't mind seeing a VR headset, but I don't think it's a smart move. Asa, would you like to see one from Xbox? Do they need it?
So I'm not going to give you a one-word answer. I'm going to give you a few words here. So I've already said that I love VR, right? Microsoft do VR on the PC pretty damn well. They know what they're doing. They've got the software in place. They could very easily support it on Xbox. And I'd be happy for that. I don't think that they will anytime soon, because it runs completely contrary to their bigger strategy, which is to remove barriers to play Xbox games. They want to bring games to everybody everywhere. They've got this massive drive for Xbox Gamepass and for cloud. Virtual reality introduces barriers rather than taking them away. So I don't think we're getting it anytime soon. Mm-hmm. What I am bitter about is their complete lack of support in the PC space where they do have headsets. Why can't I play Forza Horizon 5 in virtual reality, or 4 for that matter? I want them to do something in the space where they say that they are keen on VR.
And supporting it. Yeah, that's a pretty good question, especially when it comes to VR plus steering wheel plus that sort of setup. That would be just out of control. Good. Jedi, are you back with us? Jedi is still having technical difficulty.
Just to jump in really briefly to that question, I think it is a good question too. Thanks, Matt, for that. But I would say I'm with Asa as far as it goes. If you're going to go into that, and Microsoft has been leading the way when it comes to moving to PC and having the games for everyone and everywhere. But if you're going to do that, you absolutely have to also cater to that market too. So they should have something for PC gamers when it comes to that. But for me personally,
yeah, we got you.
Yes, we can hear you. But for me personally, I would say I have no interest, literally zero interest in VR. The only game I do want to try, literally, is the Half-Life Alyx. That's really it. Other than that, nothing.
I think it's got legs, man. I think VR's got legs. I just don't think that it's there yet. Exactly like Phil said.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think you asked me before if I think Microsoft have gone in the right direction, and I think they have. I think they needed to win back favor from last generation, and I think the VR is too much of a niche market now. I like the fact that most of their studios are focusing on making the best possible games they can make. On the flip side of that, I think that Sony knows that Microsoft isn't focusing on VR, so I think it's a smart move on their part to also double down on it. It's something that they have, that Xbox don't have. I just don't know if they're going to be spreading their studios too thin when they'll need to focus on making, the normal game output that they would usually make, plus adding VR to that. But yeah, a studio that they just bought, Frostbite, is the one that are behind the Horizon game that's going to be coming out on PSVR2. So if they can purchase a few more studios, get them to focus on some PSVR2 games, then yeah. So I think it works on, I think it works for PlayStation. I think it works for Microsoft. Personally, I don't really get into the VR, so I'm happy where Xbox is at the moment.
I think you make a pretty good point.
Can I ask a?
But go ahead. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? So I know I've heard it several times here, and I'm even seeing it on the chat. We keep saying that VR is niche. So what at what metric or at what point do we feel that VR is no longer niche? And the reason I asked that question in specific is because at least in this last year, or with the product that's out there, the Quest 2 has already sold more than the Series X and S combined. It sold 10 million units versus the 8 millions of the Series X and S. So I would even say that we're getting to that point where VR is no longer being a niche product.
I think when there's more games like Half-Life Alyx, or however you pronounce it, then it'll become less niche. I think that when everyone was expecting VR, I think we were expecting fully fledged games to be played on it, not these half-hour, 45-minute, basically extended demos to be on it. And I think when that happens, it won't be a niche product anymore.
Well, look, there's also something else just reading here, it says it's projected to increase from less than 5 billion, which is what it's at now, which is chump change to Microsoft, to more than 12 billion, which is still chump change to Microsoft, but probably something that we'd look at. But I think just with what you were saying, Pete, about the studios, I think what they've done with Firesprite supporting one of their main studios and making a VR game out of the assets that they have is a smart thing. And they might be able to follow some of their biggest games like that, setting Firesprite to do a God of War VR, setting Firesprite to do support for a lot of their different games. I think that's a bit of a clever move, and that might mitigate the issue that they would have with the amount of studios that they have to pump out games for VR.
Yeah, and using existing assets cuts down the production time. So, yeah, they could work on both ways.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a smart move,
the
way they've done it.
On their studio, so they have, Jim Ryan said a while ago that part of the VR strategy was going to be to have their mainline AAA games be developed with VR in mind, so that they could quite easily have dual versions, essentially. I was actually a bit disappointed with the Horizon game that they showed, because that's very much still in the VR tech demo kind of category to me. Like, that's not Horizon Forbidden West. It's not even Horizon Zero Dawn. That's a character sitting in a boat for what looks to be a tech demo. So that's a shame. You've got to remember, in terms of studios, they got Firesprite. They also got Insomniac. And everyone knows Insomniac for Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank, but Insomniac put out 5 exclusive games for Oculus. So they have a VR studio there as well. And a good one at that. The downside is that Microsoft gobbled up a lot of studios that were dabbling in VR as well. Ninja Theory did Hellblade VR. Bethesda did Skyrim, Fallout, Doom. In Exile did the Bard's Tale VR. Microsoft gobbling up these studios isn't good for the VR games outlook.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair point.
Yeah.
Gladiator?
Well, the one thing I do wonder is how much of a head start are they going to give Facebook? Well, now Meta, in moving into this new aspect, because I imagine that the metaverse is something that every company is going to want to have a hold in at some point, right? Clearly, Facebook is. Well, Meta, Meta now. They're really trying to push forward by creating a $300 unit, that is standalone and can be used in the PC. And they have a new unit coming out, which is only known as Project Cambria at this point. So they're definitely trying to push the tech. And I feel like Sony is getting their hands in it. And what we've seen Microsoft do is a platform they called mixed reality, which for them, they were trying to go the route like they use with PCs, where with PCs, it's more a matter of having partners build the hardware, and then they provide like the software environment in order for them to do it. But I wonder at what point do they do what they did with the Surface, which is they made an aspirational unit and said, look, this is what a unit should be like. And then that way they can make the lead moving forward. When it comes to that gaming space and just all that information, I don't see how Microsoft could just keep sitting on the sidelines. But at the same point, I see that their vision right now is more in that 2D space and getting games out to as many people as possible through Game Pass. But I do like the direction that PlayStation is doing with bringing this headset out. I mean, all of the different advances that they have should be amazing, especially with the eye tracking, where it should heavily decrease how people feel sick within VR headsets. And this is like one of that first major ones to move it forward.
Yeah.
Didn't Microsoft already help HTC make their new headset? Like, so they've already been involved in this space. Like, they have been thinking about it. I think when the Oculus Rift first came out, it dropped with an Xbox controller as well. So Microsoft have definitely looked into VR. I think they've just made a decision not to bring it to the console market. I thought when they helped HTC develop that headset that it was going to be coming to the new consoles. I mean, obviously the Series consoles are powerful enough to run VR. We never know. It could be coming in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my thinking of it is this. Microsoft and Xbox in general got a lot of flack in the past for doing other things with peripherals and things like that their gamers just did not care for. I mean, we all remember the Kinect. Now, it was somehow a success, but it still was hated by so many. So I think Xbox focusing on just games and giving us that specific thing, because they know they're gamers, and most of us do not care for VR. It's just the truth for now. Now, it could grow in the future, but I think what they're doing right now is smart for them. What Sony is doing is smart for them. I think, that's just what it is right now. It still is a niche thing, VR, but it is what it is. I mean, gaming itself is considered niche, right? So eventually it'll grow. Like you guys pointed out, the meta thing and everything like that. And the only way I'm getting involved in some VR meta is if I get some Master Chief armor that I can see in my VR or something like that. Yeah, then I'll get involved, Gladiator, all right? Until then, I don't want to see any pony hooves sticking out of my VR inside this game. You understand me? That's not what I signed up for. All right?
You don't want to throw the wings on your back and fly high like a Pegasus? No?
I'll keep my hooves. Yeah. My hooves will be firmly on the ground. Speaking of smart moves, this week, biggest news. We haven't even got to the biggest news of the week, which is absolutely crazy because, look, obviously VR is a very contentious subject, man. To be honest, I'm pretty keen. But as soon as they drop the price, I'm pretty sure that keenness will slip away. But the biggest news of the week, Ubisoft Plus coming to Xbox. Now, I jumped the gun on Twitter, and I tweeted out that Ubisoft Plus was coming to Game Pass, and I will take that on the chin. That was incorrect. I did not read the article. I just got excited and went, yay, and started tweeting.
I think a lot of people did, mate. Yeah. I think a lot of people did.
But I do think it is a step towards it being a Game Pass. I don't think it's feasible to have all of these publishers having their own subscription service and us being subscribed to all of them. There needs to be some sort of consolidation. Yes, we've got Netflix, we've got Hulu, we've got Paramount Plus, you've got Disney Plus, but they need to offer something. So content is king, and I don't think a publisher like Ubisoft just offering, well, let's be honest, Ubisoft type games, just the same game, really, isn't it? In my personal opinion, whether it's first person, third person, different skin, use a gun, use an axe, it's a Ubisoft game. I don't think that subscription service can survive. I'm not sure on the numbers here. Someone's probably going to correct me, without inserting itself into something like Game Pass or something larger. And I guess my question is to you guys, do you think it's coming to Game Pass and that's in the future? And then if so, how much is too much for Game Pass? What would you be willing to pay for an EA, a Game Pass, and a Ubisoft Plus together? Umbra?
Yeah, for me, I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's a foregone conclusion in my head already, and I'm pretty sure many of us. They were quick to dismiss it, right? The thought of it coming to Game Pass. I'll give them that. The PR people got on it pretty quick and was like, oh no, it's not coming to Game Pass. But even Gladiator here had a space dedicated to it. I mean, we know it's going to happen eventually. I think it's just a matter of things being ironed out still and a matter of time, right? With the Rainbow Six
They also
Extraction.
tweeted between Ubisoft and Game Pass, there was the eye emoji thing, nothing to see here kind of thing. But yeah,
Exactly. A little tongue in cheek. But I mean, with Extraction coming day and date, I'm thinking, and even Jez Corden even leaned toward it being a test for how well it's adopted by Xbox gamers before they bite the bullet and go all in. But my thinking is if EA Play can join into the Game Pass Ultimate, so can Ubisoft Plus. It's just a matter of time. And I wouldn't be surprised as far as pricing if Microsoft swallows that cost. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they charge $20 a month, either with a $5 increase, which I think is fair, being honest.
A $5 increase.
I don't think that's too much to ask. $20 a month for all these things included, that's insane value. I mean, I can see it hurting some people's pockets, but $5 more, you can justify that. In my really a fair opinion, I think it's fair, rather, I think I should say. I think anything past 20, like if you're asking 25 or whatever, then it starts to get like, then people might start to kind of doubt it. But $20, I think, for all those things included, absolutely. Especially if it has the DLC and things like that Ubisoft Plus typically has with it. But that's just my thoughts. What are you guys' thoughts on it?
it might give you a choice of either choosing Ubisoft Plus or EA Play. I think that would be a good way to do it. I think the more options, the better. I would love it if Microsoft took the cost on to themselves and it came to Game Pass and they worked out a deal with Ubisoft. I would have thought that the EA Play deal was going to be, for a limited time. I was actually expecting it after a year EA Play to drop out, but I think EA is very happy being in Game Pass, and I think that Ubisoft don't want to miss out. So, yeah, look, I could see Microsoft wearing the cost as well, or, like I said earlier, giving us an option to either choose Ubisoft Plus or EA Play.
Yeah, look, absolutely. There's a lot of talk in the chat from Grum and from WNCC just discussing tiers. Could they have a tiered system? I think that's probably likely. Asa, how do you think this is going to roll?
This is where it's perception more so than function. So does Ubisoft Plus need to be in Game Pass if you can already get the subscription served separately? Doesn't really need to. As an Xbox gamer, it's the same thing whether you're paying more in Game Pass or whether you're paying for those separately. The problem with Ubisoft Plus at the moment is Ubisoft's perceived value for it. If you look at the price that they charge for that service on PC and on Stadia and on Amazon Luna, and that's the thing to remember, by the way, you can get Ubisoft Plus all over the place. This isn't some big coup for Xbox. Ubisoft are pushing it everywhere. But Ubisoft charge a lot more. They charge more than you can get the base tier of Game Pass for, just for that service. So for it to go into Game Pass, you've either got to restructure Game Pass to do tiers or channels like Amazon Luna does, or you've got to do what EA have done and have a second tier of the service that doesn't cost very much.
I
It's got
agree.
to be
I
one
agree.
thing or the
Asa.
other.
Do you think that it will eventually come to Game Pass, Asa, or do you think that they're just introducing it into, so they can get people on Microsoft to, sign up to it, so it gets basically more marketing? Because I know Ubisoft Plus has been around for a while. I don't think it's as big as EA Play. I don't think as many people know about it, and included in that, it is quite expensive. I think it's something like $18 a month in Australia.
Yeah, so Price-wise, though, a lot of people don't realize, but EA have a premium. I can't even remember what they're calling it now. It used to be their premium tier. So on the consoles, you get EA Play that costs 20 quid, $30, whatever it is for a year. But the PC version has a premium version of that brings all of EA's games day and date. And that's more in line with what Ubisoft have done. And that costs a hell of a lot more. So Ubisoft's service and EA's premium service are kind of pitched at the same level, and they cost a lot more. They cost more than Game Pass for each one of those services individually. Ubisoft just don't have that lower tier in place yet to put elsewhere, but it's likely that it'll come if I were to predict. Option C, of course, is that Ubisoft turn all of their big games into infinite live service games and plug them full of NFTs, and don't worry where their games go. But I don't know. I mean, how are we all on Ubisoft games? Would you want a Ubisoft dedicated service? Would you actually subscribe just to play Assassin's Creed and Far Cry every year?
Look, I buy those games every year, all the time. I always say that, the next Ubisoft game that comes out, I'm not going to buy, but I always end up buying them. At the end of the day, I do love those games. I love Assassin's Creed. I love Far Cry. I love Ghost Recon. They're great games to play. I love The Division. Watch Dogs. They really do make some amazing games, regardless of the hate that they get. A subscription service, I don't think the value's there. If you look at Ubisoft Plus with Game Pass, I just can't see the value there. So no, personally, I wouldn't be signing up to a subscription service with Ubisoft. But that's personal opinion. I'm sure there's people out there that would prefer to get their games that way. I mean, Game Pass proves that. What do you think, Umbra?
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I love those games too. The big problem is that Ubisoft Plus itself goes for $15, and I can tell you, many of us are just not going to do that. It's on top of adding in the cost of Game Pass and such. So I would say some will. Obviously, it's still a good deal, right? But and for people like yourself who really gets into those games, it will absolutely speak to them. But I think there are enough anti-Ubisoft people, too, who will not be like, I'm going to pay $15 more extra for this versus what we already get with the ridiculous great value in Game Pass. You see what I mean? I just think as a whole, I think it'll contrast and people will be like, nah, no thanks. And eventually, Ubisoft will succumb and they will move over to Game Pass Ultimate. That's the way I see it. And I think it's in the plans anyway. Because I think, again, Microsoft knows their customers. Xbox knows their customers. They know what we're clamoring for. This Ubisoft Plus thing of them coming to Game Pass has been rumored for years. I mean, we've heard it on RDX. We've heard it with Jez. This is not some coincidence. So it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I think they're testing the waters with Extraction. I don't think Extraction got the buzz that they were hoping that it was going to get, especially after, it got so much hype when it was released as, a DLC or something with in Rainbow Six Siege. So, that's the reason why they decided to, make it a standalone game in itself. And I just don't think that it got the traction that Ubisoft thought it was going to get. So I think they're testing the waters with Extraction. I think it will do really, really well in Game Pass. I mean, personally, I wasn't actually going to buy that game. But now it's in Game Pass. I actually can't wait to try it. I pre-downloaded it yesterday, so really, really looking forward to it. I think when Ubisoft see the numbers, it will be undeniable to them, the value of being included in Game Pass. Eyeballs on their games is what every developer wants. So, yeah, look, I think you're right, Umbra. I think eventually that it will come to Game Pass. How that pans out, I don't know. How long it'll take, I don't know. But I can definitely see that happening. What do you think about all this, Gladiator?
I think that it does not come to Game Pass. I think that they want to charge the $15 a month or whatever it is. Maybe they offer you some kind of discount. But I do think that part of their play is if you do go into their $17.99 tier, I think that'll give you access to their games through cloud gaming on Game Pass. I think that'll be the big play that they'll try to make moving forward to build value on that, because that's currently what they let you do with the $17.99 price point, they give you access to all their games on Luna and Stadia, and then adding Game Pass to that mix may still make a lot of sense for them, because these guys are not in the business of trying to lose money. And I don't know if Microsoft would be willing to bridge that gap, maybe to the point where they do lower the price at in some level, but there is value being offered with Ubisoft Plus. You do have like all the DLCs, all the season passes, and that's included with the games that they launch day and date. So that already is a lot of value. Then you add to the fact that if they want to bring some games day and date, make it the service games, just like they're doing with Extraction, which makes sense because you get all of the audience from Game Pass, all the Game Pass subscribers. So I think there's room for them to not let go of their business model, take advantage of what Xbox can offer them, aka cloud gaming and the engagement numbers for their multiplayer games, and then leave their single player games having to pay the full access price. But here's the thing, like, even though this stuff exists on PC and it exists through cloud, it doesn't exist in the console right now. So just the fact that it'll exist on the Xbox platform, I think is already going to be a big win for the service, especially for those people that don't want to pay the full price right from the get, because we all know Xbox gamers don't buy games. Shit, controversy.
Oh, here we go.
Hot take by the gladiator.
Here we go. Well, I did.
We let him speak too long. We let him speak too long, and that's exactly what happened. Slander.
I did buy Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So that's probably not true. I did buy it before it came to Game Pass. Would I have bought it if it came to Game Pass? Who knows? But Grum here had a good point. Very, very good point. If they get 10 million total in Ubisoft Plus subs and Game Pass reaches 60 million plus in a few years, they might make more money charging a few bucks from 60 million than charging 15 to a smaller market. And that's a very clever thought.
Absolutely.
This could be more profitable for them, depending on what the numbers of Game Pass are, and the numbers we don't know, but we can assume they're at least around 25 million. Asa, do you think that's a pretty decent take? Grum?
It is a decent take, yeah. The only thing with that is Ubisoft wouldn't control much of a share of Game Pass. Game Pass is growing and growing and growing, and one of the challenges that Microsoft have got is not oversaturating it. So everybody wants to be in Game Pass, but the more people that are in there, the less value it is to them. Not just in terms of their share of the money, but in terms of their share of the limelight as well. Extraction will probably do well because it's coming out in a quiet month. It's a co-op game and it's going to spread like wildfire with people able to pick it up and play with their friends. But at what point do you have too many of a particular genre of game? There's been a couple of first-person shooters that dropped on Game Pass that nobody's heard of. There was Lemnis Gate, I think it was, something like that.
Yeah, Lemnis Gate, yep.
And it had all of the criteria to be a Game Pass success, and I've never heard a single person talk about it because there's a lot of games of that ilk. That's the challenge that Microsoft have with Game Pass, though. So Ubisoft might love to have their games on there, but it's not necessarily up to Ubisoft because Microsoft have to keep that service working for everyone, for us and all of their other partners.
But we all know that Microsoft...
I haven't actually heard of that take before. That's really interesting, Asa. I was going to play the Anacarusis, but now that Rainbow Six Extraction's going to be on there, they're both very similar games, aren't they? So is it good that they're launching, within a couple of days of each other? That's a really good point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Just to add to that, though.
Ubisoft makes those games that Microsoft don't make, and that's over-the-shoulder third-person action adventures, or sad dad walking simulators, however you want to frame it.
Before you move on, I just want to say, though, going to that point, I think Asa and Gladiator has, outside of his slander, has good points when it comes to that, and definitely oversaturation could be an issue. I think what it comes down to is Microsoft, or at least them as partners, coming to a way of balancing that out. So maybe Ubisoft Plus will come in a certain way. Maybe you won't get the DLC. Maybe you won't get the added not battle passes, but the
DLC, season pass, all that.
Season pass. Thank you. Maybe you won't get that with it. Maybe you'll get the light version of it, right? I think it could work out. I just don't see how they would be looked at as competitors, because ultimately they'd be a competitor for your money, being separately released outside of Game Pass. And I think Game Pass just has way too much value considering all the games, including EA Play in it, versus just getting Ubisoft Plus. I just don't think the market is there for Ubisoft Plus to outdo them not being added into Game Pass personally. But I think you all have good points there. It could go either way.
Absolutely. If you just joined us,
if it's choice between Game Pass and Ubisoft Plus, I think most people are going to choose Game Pass.
yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. I know. Look, if Ubisoft Plus is $15 for a subscription, I'm probably not going to dive in because I might buy one
I
Ubisoft.
already do, by the way.
What, you already subscribed to it?
Just putting it out there. I've already. I'm a mug. I've had it for like a year and a half, and I've only played one game on it. So
Yeah, well, that's
great on me.
That's exactly it. I will only play probably one game, and it will probably be Assassin's Creed because I'm addicted to that game, and I will complete the entire thing. And they've just released some DLC, which is massive, actually. Massive DLC.
Except for Valhalla.
I'm
It's not an Assassin's Creed game.
It definitely is. It's one of the best. Anyway, if you've just joined us, this is Xbox Infinite. We're here with JediKnightPete and Umbra as always, and our guests today, Asa and Gladiator. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button to know when we go live. Moving on to a similar topic, the same topic, pretty much, is that Rainbow Extraction. We've kind of touched on this, has come to Game Pass, and Mass Effect Legendary Edition came to Game Pass, so just adding to the value. Game Pass has been incredible this year. Absolutely incredible. Out of control. Good. I have played, it's got to be at least, I haven't added it up. I think I added it up to 800, and that was a few months ago. So it's got to be over $1,000 that I would have spent had I not been subscribed to Game Pass. And it's just a pity that PlayStation charges $70 for every game. Gladiator.
What's up?
Game Pass.
You know I'm loving my Returnal, by the way, right? I love Returnal.
Yeah, game of the year.
You love paying $70 for it?
You went too far.
So, look, you sit on the fence and you lean your hoof over one side pretty hard. We all know that. However,
Yes, to Nintendo. Yes.
you cannot deny the value of Game Pass. I've heard you speak on this before, and you're not a Game Pass detractor. You're a Game Pass subscriber and lover.
Dude, let me tell you right now, I love Game Pass. I was already a big fan of Game Pass when they were bringing Game Pass to PC because it just gave me such an extra big library of games to play over there. And I even have 2 Series X's in my house that I can Game Pass, wherever I want in my home, right? Like, I love Game Pass. But here's the thing about Game Pass. Since I have Game Pass, I won't buy games on Xbox. I made that joke earlier, but that's how I look at when I look at the system. There's going to be some games I buy, but man, the catalog, the library that's there, the amount of indies, man, I even played that game. What is it? Boyfriend Dungeon? And let me tell you,
No,
You would.
No.
I don't not believe. I believe you all the way.
oh yeah, let me be honest. There's only one woman that you can actually date in that whole thing, and because you could pick as a guy, right? And the rest of it, I was trying to see how male to male friendly I could stay, and that game was making it hard for you to go down. But it was fun, right? And those are the type of games I love just picking up and playing, man. And I love Game Pass. If anybody talks trash on Game Pass, I'm gonna fight them. That's it.
There you go. That's what I expect. Fight. Let them fight.
Yeah, I mean, those little games are great for Game Pass, aren't they? Ravi, Ono, games that you would pretty much never play unless they were on Game Pass. Your Boyfriend Dungeon. I love I love that those games are on Game Pass and not just the big AAAs.
Yeah. Absolutely. It makes Game Pass. Those little games that you find that are absolute gems, but these big, massive, life-sucking, because Legendary Edition is going to take up a lot of my time, games that come to Game Pass are just, Unbelievable. I did not think that Legendary Edition would come to Game Pass. I thought there was no way. They've already got the old editions in there. And they'll hold off with this one. And maybe a long way down the track we'd see it. But I spent $50 on it. So, you know.
Yeah, look, I mean, Microsoft
think that was
keeping
the gaming
Xbox
guy
keeping
supposed
the
to be-
momentum from last year already coming into this year, just amazing. The scope of Game Pass now. Mass Effect Legendary Edition is probably one of the greatest games, you know, all in one beautiful package, all the DLC, you know, and Extraction as well. So yeah, definitely Xbox keeping up the momentum that they had from last year coming into this year already, and it's great to see.
Yeah, Extraction I wasn't excited for, and I wasn't going to play it like you said, Pete. But I am definitely going to be giving that game a bit of a hammering. I know my son loves Rainbow Six Siege, loves it. He was one of those Rainbow Six Siege knocking on your door. Have you played Rainbow Six Siege? Type dudes. Asa, are you going to be playing Extraction?
Only because it's on Game Pass, yeah. It's funny though, because I've already said, like, I've got the Ubisoft subscription. So before this news broke, I would have got Rainbow Six Extraction for free on that subscription, and I wouldn't have played it because I would have been on my own. Now it's on Game Pass. Everybody that I know, I can say, hey, do you fancy playing Rainbow Six Siege, whatever it's called, Extraction? Looks like a terrible game, but everybody has access to it now. So yeah, I'll probably play it for that reason.
Give it a bang. Will you stream it, and will you play it on Xbox, or will you play it on PC?
To be confirmed. I will stream
Should
it.
have called it
Or do a
quarantine
video
still.
on it. Whether I play on Xbox or PC, we'll see.
Hey, Asa, now that it's an Xbox and you don't have to play alone, I guess you could say you can play with family. Yeah. Anyway, just adding to that, I think all of us agree. That was my little Vin Diesel line there. But anyway, it fell flat. But, you know, I want to say, I think all of us agreed. I don't think any of us had any care for Rainbow Six Extraction before this. And I think it's going to be successful simply because of the subscribers that are going to play it in Game Pass, right? Same much like with Outriders and the same with Back 4 Blood. So I think it's very fortunate. And I think Gladiator pointed out earlier that it's going to have that. Since it's a live service game, maybe that's why they will release that. So that you guys could be right on them not bringing Ubisoft Plus because of that. So maybe they'll just release select games rather. But that's to be seen. I definitely appreciate my own sense of value when it comes to things because I didn't buy Mass Effect Legendary Edition Risk, and somehow I'm being rewarded. You, however, had never played the series and had bought it, and now it's coming to Game Pass. That's unfortunate, brother.
Yeah, look, it's great to own it, though. It is great to own it. At least I can kind of come back, not have to worry about it leaving Game Pass, because, I mean, that's obviously a thing that happens. These games do leave. Look, the game that I'm most worried about, most concerned about, and really don't want to leave Game Pass is, and it's got to be the same for all of us, Lawnmower Simulator. Like, that game is just an absolute banger, and if you haven't played it, you know, get your control pad out, download it. You can play it on the cloud if you want. It is, honestly, it'll blow your hair back. I'm telling you.
Let me tell you, I was playing that. I was playing that a bit, and then my lady comes by. She's like, "Why are you mowing the lawn in the game?" I'm like, "Leave me alone. It's on Game Pass." Okay.
Well, look
at the dang the follicles of the grass being cut, woman, and leave me be.
At least you didn't stream it, you know?
Definitely not.
A lot of the DLC on Mass
You
Effect.
want the boyfriend dungeon one?
I hear silence from Ace's side of the...
You know, I streamed it. I even made a video on it, and it's brilliant. Just because I put the backing track, I've got that Halo theme tune followed by the Skyrim theme tune, which don't fit at all, and I love it.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, it is great. It is.
I'm not disappointed at all about paying for Mass Effect Legendary Edition. 3 games, 3 of the best games ever made, all in one package. Plus, most of the DLC when from the 360 version when moving over to the Xbox One had massive trouble, licensing issues or something, along those lines, where I lost my Blood Dragon armor. I lost a lot of my other DLCs, and just to have it all in one package, and I own it forever now. So I'm not disappointed in buying it, but But if you haven't played Mass Effect, risk it. Yeah.
I bought it. You can't
Turn on the game,
keep heaping
play
shit on me
it,
after I bought it. Come on. I bought the game.
Still haven't played it. Yeah,
played
one of the
10
greatest games of all time, mate.
I played 10 minutes of it, right?
You're right, mate.
Yeah, it's a lot of
You're right. It's going to take a long time. I think Momad in the chat was saying that he's just played number 1 and it took him 40 hours. And if number 1 took him 40 hours, then number 2 is going to take him 80 to 90. Same with number 3.
I was talking to
put a
Monad.
lot of time for that game.
I was talking to Monad about that, and he said he was a little bit burnt out by the first one, so he's going to wait and go back to it. But speaking of you buying the game and you owning the game, that's a pretty poignant point to move on to our next topic. Because Square Enix released a press release to its investors, and they were highlighting NFTs as a possible revenue source in the future. The community wasn't happy. It wasn't a hard set. They didn't say they were going to definitely do it. It was going to happen. It's coming in their next game, but it definitely shows you the direction of Square Enix. And myself personally, it shows you that Cyrstal Dynamics is quite likely to separate from them as a publisher. And whether they come under Xbox, which I really believe that they will, or whether they go out on their own, we will see. But I just don't think that IO didn't fit the mold. And I don't think Cyrstal Dynamics fit the mold, and I think we saw that with Avengers. But this question of the NFTs keeps coming up, the non-fungible tokens. Now I'm going to go to Gladiator on this one because it's very likely that Sony will adopt this almost immediately because of their, history. What do you think of the NFTs coming to gaming?
It's a loaded question only because of the fact that I do think it being so new, and because of the fact that a lot of people make fun of the fact of wait, you're selling a picture that I can just download, and just a lot of misconceptions on what NFTs are, the value of it, the bad rap. I just think that for a lot of these gaming companies, they don't want to be really the first to do it, but I think it's inevitable. It's one of the things that are going to happen, and I'm actually totally fine with the whole concept of NFTs and everything. I did a good amount of research. I'm still learning a lot of things, but I get it. Now I'm at the point where I feel like I get it, and I'm fine with it. That's where I'm at with it. And I think every company will adopt it to some degree moving forward because they're already doing microtransactions, and it's going to be an extension of the moment that it messes with gameplay in the way that you have a pay to win system, or it interferes with just the regular development of games, is when it's going to fail. But I do think there's a lot of exciting things that could come from it.
A lot of exciting things. I've been thinking about this personally myself, and there is actually some good things I think that can come of NFTs. I wouldn't know what they are because, I don't know, I guess I'm not that forward thinking and I'm getting a bit too old. But I definitely think it's going to permeate the industry. It's starting to. I mean, we saw this with microtransactions. Fonz tells a story about how he bought some armor that he thought was going to just lift his gameplay to the next level, and it turned out just to be, a lovely skin. And that set the industry on fire at the time. So I mean, this is the same thing. It's going to set the industry on fire. People are going to complain, but it's coming. We're going to have to deal with it. Umbra.
So, real quick, if you don't mind me just adding this one thing, I think the main concept that people should try to grasp with NFTs, the reason they want to do it is because every time an item gets sold secondhand over and over and over, they're getting a cut of those sales. It's called a smart contract, that anytime it gets sold, they make money off of it. But on top of that too, the player themselves who have the item, whether it's a hat or icon, stickers, whatever it is, they can make money off of it.
But where do you store it? Where does that non-fungible token get stored? Do you have a wallet, a Bitcoin wallet? What if then that part of the DLC that you've earned is then vaulted? What then do you do? How do you own this? What is the definition of ownership digitally? This is a lot of questions that non-fungible tokens are going to bring up, and what are going to be the answers?
So this is the thing about it, right? Like the non-fungible tokens are more about a certificate of ownership. It's not saying this is yours 100%. So the best analogy that I can try to make on this is if a comic book company makes, X-Men 1, they make 1,000 of those copies, and then you got one of those copies. The fact that you have it in your hand, the only way they can give you that license of ownership is by creating the NFT. So it's more of a certificate of authenticity, but that doesn't mean that now you own the whole property of X-Men 1. They're just giving you the license saying that you get this, and then the utility that comes behind it would be, hey, I could use it in the game, or I can hold on to it till it gets very popular and then maybe sell it down the road, right? So that's the ownership aspect. It's not, hey, now I can completely make all these different things. Like, do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, it's more limited editions and giving you a certificate for it.
I do, but I think...
I don't know if you guys remember, there was a game, it was a while back now, it was one of the first games that had NFTs, and it was the whole universe, or the whole soul system, so to speak, and someone bought the moon for something like $10,000, and it ended up being worth like $1 million, and there was a nightclub on the moon that everybody would go visit, and you'd actually have to pay real money to get into it, and the money it became ridiculous, paying $10,000 for the moon, in a digital game. I don't know if maybe the chat knows the name of the game, or, one of the panel members remembers the name of the game, but, it's a very slippery slope. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, just to answer on that is pretty ridiculous. I'm always amazed by what people will waste their money on. But to each their own, I guess, right? But as far as the whole NFT thing goes, I can see that upside if you're going to get money from it. I can definitely see that. But I don't know, man. It's just something about it feels greedy and unnecessary. And when you mix that in with gaming, to me, it's just a terrible mix. So I just don't have much interest in it. And I think it can go the wrong way, much as MTXs have gone before it. So, such as they'll have an NFT for a gun or something like that only that person can have. And now we can't have it unless we paid a certain amount or whatever for it. I think it just has too much room for it to go wrong versus it being right. So for that reason, I have no care for it.
Yeah, look, I 110% agree with that. It definitely has the potential to go very, very wrong. But then have they learnt their lesson with microtransactions, Asa?
I mean, the lesson with microtransactions is that they can do whatever the hell they want, and it doesn't matter how much the gaming community tried to resist, right?
I agree.
Microtransactions were very similar equivalent to NFTs in that everybody hated them. Horse Armor came out and fans were not happy.
Especially
and
Fonz.
Every microtransaction for a while. Well, Fonz, it's his fault. He bought it, right? So, but, I mean, where are microtransactions now? Freaking everywhere.
Bigger than ever. Yep.
So where are NFTs going to be in 10 years? And it's interesting, like, I've not heard many people see potential in them. And I've always argued, like, theoretically, they could benefit consumers. They could benefit us at the end of it. In practice, I've not heard anyone present any real example of that. So even the things that you're saying there about owning things and getting money when you sell them on to other people or whatever else, none of that requires NFTs. You can do that without. So I'm struggling to see any scenario, and I don't think that they don't exist. I think there are scenarios where it would exist, possibly when you start talking like metaverse and you can own items and carry them across games and worlds and things like that. But we're so far away from that being relevant that right now it's just slimy executives, and Square Enix are taking the cake on this front at the moment, but slimy executives looking at ways to do bad things, and that's a shame.
I agree, I agree.
Grum said,
people are stupid, mate. That's why they get away with it.
Grum in the chat said, remember that 24K golden iPhone with real diamonds on it. That's what NFT skins will be like. Look, I hope not. I hope you don't get that kind of shit. But you do get it in. You get it in COD. So, I mean, Gladiator, you had a bit more to say on that.
Yeah, I was going to say that even though that they can do these things without using NFTs, the benefit to them is always going to be the fact that this is living on a system where they don't have to maintain any kind of payment system. All they have to maintain is some level of transfer system. It'll live in an open market, which will allow anybody to really come, as far as if there is a speculation market that will exist on these type of items. And in the end of the day, we've lived in a whole generation where we've spent money, tons of money, and we've never reaped any real rewards on these items and things. So allowing us to go ahead and, hey, I've had this skin for a few years, I'm going to quit this game. You know what? Let me sell my stuff off. Like, I love that concept. You know, is there a lot of room for things to go wrong? Absolutely. But I do feel that, to their respect, they need this to succeed. So they're going to try to make sure to implement this as well as possible. In non-intrusive ways, in ways that won't affect gameplay.
But history,
that's what I'm saying, that
history disagrees with you. With what they've done.
I mean, don't you think that the gaming industry already has a bad enough name with microtransactions? I mean, look what Europe's trying to do, trying to outlaw them. I think Germany already passed the law to outlaw loot boxes.
That's right.
I mean, the industry doesn't need any more bad press. I think Phil Spencer's right. I think it feels that it's a little bit extortionist. So, yeah, look, I can't see anything good coming from it.
You just brought up microtransactions or loot boxes, but that's because there was a gambling element. So as long as everything's out in the open where you can see the transactions and know what you're paying for, there's never been any litigation against microtransactions. It's been about loot boxes, the sales of loot boxes with chances that you have no freaking idea what to do. That was probably the worst and most egregious version of monetization that exists. But again, doing it in a way that you can reap some reward out of it, that's the whole reason they want to do it. And that's why artists are getting into it with NFTs and everything like that, because every time it sales, you're going to make money off of it. And of course, they're going to want that cut as well.
You brought up an interesting...
Yeah, that's a fair point.
You brought up an interesting couple of points, and one of the points you brought up is in the open market. And then how do you take your NFT to an open market? Will there be an open market across, say, like a platform like Xbox, or an open market across PlayStation, or will they be conjoined, or will it be across PC, or will there be an open market across a singular game? How are they going to make that happen?
So will it be like what Microsoft did with Microsoft Flight Simulator, where they allowed content creators to create different planes for you, or and then you can buy? Is that how it's going to work, or will your individual item be specifically licensed to you, and then you can sell that item on if you want to, and make some money out of it? Like, how will it actually be done? Who controls the actual content that's being created? Is it just the game developer? Will it be open up to, just anybody to be able to create a product and then sell it on? All these things really haven't been answered. And also, what I found funny is Square Enix actually knows that the gaming mass don't want this. They actually said it in their newsletter to their investors, but what they said is it's for a different type of gamer, the gamer that wants to feel part of the community. So they already know they're going to get negative feedback from this, and they're still doing it anyway.
Yeah. So I do want to jump on that part of the statement, because I know when people read that, they went crazy. They said, "What? That sounds stupid. That sounds ludicrous." But there are people that do that. And when I say that, I'm talking about more like MMO type games, bigger games of service type games, where people will, all they do is kind of like farm for mats and do those type of things for their guilds and all that type of stuff. They play as support players. Like, that was the meaning that I got from that, especially because they have a Final Fantasy 14. I'm sure they have data that shows that a lot of people do those type of activities.
I mean, it was people's job. I remember when I played Coda, people would, I can't remember the item, but you would be able to get the item and sell it on so you'd buy the item from the store and then sell it on for more than you bought it for, and you were actually able to make money. And I just don't like the practice. I don't like where it's going. I think it takes advantage of people that maybe aren't, all there, or maybe they're using their parents' credit card number on the game. I think it just opens the gaming industry up to, a lot of negative, attention.
I'd agree with that. Absolutely. I hope they don't come in because I just don't trust not game developers but publishers. They're not to be trusted. But we're going to move on from NFTs onto the next subject, and that was it's a pretty contentious subject. I didn't think it was that contentious. I thought we all kind of agreed that we didn't like NFTs, but Gladiator, you always bring the heat. I appreciate that.
It's that I've tried to do a lot of research to try to understand things before I hate on them just off the bat.
Oh, so you research what you start to hate on, then? That's what you're trying to tell us.
Yeah, because, if I want to hate, I want to hate the right way.
That's fair. That's a fair way to be. I like that. Look, moving on to our next subject. I'm going to drop to a subject we talked about, Bond. Bond may possibly be getting... not a remake, sorry, a re-release on Xbox. Look, I'm not 110% excited about this because I don't know if you guys have played Bond since way back in the day, but the control system is crazy.
It is a remake, Risket. They actually remade it for the 360, but it never got released due to licensing issues, so they have fixed all those controller issues.
Right,
right. So it is actually a remake, mate. But it is a little bit different because when they originally did it for the 360, there was only 20 achievements that you could get. Now there's 60, so there's definitely something brewing.
Yeah, right. Umbra, are you keen for Bond? I mean, I had a lot of fun with Bond back in the day. I love Bond. I spent a lot of fond memories hanging out at my mate's house, getting up to other nefarious things and playing Bond.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a classic, man. It's actually the first person shooter game I've actually ever really played, like really played. And at the time, I thought it was pretty dope. It was so weird to me using the controller at the time, and I remember playing it. And I was just like, how the hell do I control this thing, right? Like it was so foreign. And I remember playing with my brother and a few family members, and he got the golden gun. I didn't know anything about what was happening. And I'm shooting the hell out of him, and he shoots me one time and kills me. I'm like, what? I did all this work? And I didn't understand it at the time. And then fast forward until Halo CE, when I finally played that, which fully pushed me into first-person shooters. I'm absolutely hyped for that. I think it all depends on how far they go with it. I hope they really go all out and really give it a AAA effort. But I'm actually very hyped for that, man. I think it's been a long time coming. Fans have been calling for it for decades, or a decade at least. So absolutely hyped for that.
Asa, are you? Did you play Nintendo back in the day?
I had an N64 with 2 games. One of them was GoldenEye and one of them was Perfect Dark.
Well, right, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was great back then. I don't want it now. I don't care what Xbox are doing with it. It's not going to be. I don't know. It's just gonna crush that fond memory if they do re-release it in any capacity. So I would rather they didn't. But
what if they released it
like that
in a capacity that was not like the recent release of San Andreas or GTA?
Even then, like, even if they do a full-on proper remake, I mean, at the very least, if they go and change the level structure and things like that, then people are not going to be happy because it's not GoldenEye.
Mm-hmm.
If they do a full-on graphical touch-up, fix the controls, no, not for me. It's ancient now.
What if they provided?
Come a long way since GoldenEye.
What if they provided one of the N64 controllers with the download of the game?
That would be painful.
But they're so good. Pete, are you keen? I'm skipping over you,
Look,
I
actually watched a video because when the 360 game never released, it was leaked online, I think. So I watched a video comparing the two, and it was funny to watch the video. I actually remember it. like the remastered graphics that they did for the 360. You're right, AC. You definitely look at these things through rose-colored glasses. It was, I thought that game looked phenomenal when I first played it, but you go back and have a look at it now, and yeah, it looks horrible. I hope that it doesn't ruin that, that memory for me, because I have such fond memories of playing that game at my mate's house. Amazing times. So I hope it doesn't ruin that, but I'd love to run through the game again. I'd love to go through that train level again, and then on 007, difficulty, and, I think that'd be great fun. So, yeah, I hope it comes out. The more games, the better.
Absolutely.
Don't want to play it, just don't play it.
Absolutely. I can agree with that. But yeah, if it does ruin the experience, that would be bad. Very, very bad. Releasing with an N64 controller, probably also very bad. Gladiator. Kane? Excited?
No, thank you. No, I keep it real that when it comes to old games, man, it stops. I could only go back up to the 16-bit era because I just love that era, and I think it still plays and feels awesome today. They'll be timeless, but anything past that up to now, no, thank you.
Even if it's a remaster or remake, rather.
I mean, that's different, right? But it has to be a remake. If it's just a remaster, no, thank you.
Where are we at on remakes? Because I wasn't in a very good place with remakes until, I believe, Resident Evil 2. And then, whoa, did that slap me the fuck out of hating remakes. Like, I was loving that game. That brought me back.
Yeah, amazing remake.
It gave me the feeling. It made, Resident Evil 3, probably a bit short, but also brilliant. Where are you at on remakes, Umbra?
I love them, man. Give them as long as they're well made and done. They put their real heart into it. Like you pointed out with Resident Evil 2, even 3 to a smaller degree. Obviously, it was too short, but stuff like that, that's quality. Absolutely, I'll take that.
Yeah, it depends on how it's done, doesn't it, Umbra? Like, some are done just as a money grab. When they go to the level of effort that they did for Resident Evil 2, all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Asa, Are you
Absolutely.
keen on remakes? Are you sitting with Zorka where he just wants a new IP, or do you want to see the new Dead Space? Because I'm keen for that Dead Space personally.
Yeah, it's that distinction between remake and remaster, isn't it? I'm not a fan of remasters in a space where Microsoft are doing these things for free, essentially. But a complete remake, I mean, Resident Evil 2, it's not the same game. That's every bit of effort put into making a new and fresh game that players that played the originals can appreciate that a bit more. And yeah, of course, everyone's going to love that. That's fine. Do it.
But don't do that. Yeah, no, look, I agree with what you said there. I've had that conversation on Twitter before with essentially Microsoft doing that for free. I mean, that brings me over to the come on, it's an Indiana Jones copy on PlayStation. Come on, Tomb Raider copy, Uncharted. The Uncharted remake, the Uncharted remaster or remake or whatever. It's a remaster, and essentially Xbox is doing that for free. But they're not only remastering it, they're charging you another $10 for it. So yeah, look, I'm in the same boat with you. If it's a remaster, it should be free. It should be updated to the game. If it's a remake, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, but I mean, look at Mass Effect Legendary Edition. That's pretty much a remaster, but a remaster that was done phenomenally, well, and all put together into one package. So I think it's on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, look, absolutely. It depends on who's developing it, what the game is. So moving on to, we didn't get to do this last week because the podcast would have fallen on Christmas Eve and then New Year's Day, and you better believe that everyone was rugged up, recovering from a hangover on that day. So we didn't do it, but I wanted to do a year in review. So I'll go to you, Gladiator. So in your year in review, what was it that you loved? What was it that you hated? And what was it that you found interesting or exciting about the year?
So as far as the love part, I have to say that, really spending I guess a full year with the next gen systems was absolutely a thing that I loved. Really getting to play some of those games on Game Pass and having the Series X be that vehicle that I do it with. Really getting to feel like those quick resume and some of those features in there. I thought it was just fantastic. Having that, like, hey, we're in the next gen. And even going on to the PlayStation side, really touching on that, Ratchet and Clank was that first game that made me think, wow, this is awesome, dude. And then, having that Forza Horizon like later in the year, that was just like, oh, damn, we're really doing some stuff. So those are two things, like moments that really made me love the year when it comes to gaming. My mind is a thing that I absolutely hated this year was how Rockstar disrespected us with the release of this GTA trilogies. It was just, oh my God, like it just shows no respect for gamers. It just felt wrong all the way through, and it just left a very sour taste in my mouth. And who knows when the next GTA is coming out, right? Like they're gonna live on 5 for a hot minute because it's still making them so much money. But with that said, as far as like interesting, I can't say anything like really interesting outside of the fact that I'm interested in hearing what Spartacus is all about. Sony Spartacus, see how close they get to that Game Pass model, even though I think they're not going to do very much things like day and date. I don't see that happening, but that left that very like intriguing look as to how exactly are they going to answer to this. But that's pretty much been my year in a nutshell.
Yeah, copy that. What a year it was for all of us. Umbra, how was your year? What did you love? What did you hate? And what was interesting?
Crazy year, man. I think, especially if you're an Xbox gamer, and I'm not trying to just say this because we are an Xbox podcast or because of any biases that I'm sure I have, but you have to give it to Microsoft for 2021. Ridiculously great year. I'm talking about just in general. It doesn't have to be just for first-party releases, but I'm talking about what they did as far as Game Pass as well, right? So just to give an overview, we had Tales of Arise come to Xbox. I don't think it came to PS as well, so I don't want to throw that away and act like it didn't come there, right? Excellent game, right? We had Death's Door. Now, that one I would give, obviously, to Xbox because it was straight to Xbox. Death's Door was one of my Game of the Year's nominees, at least. Probably third or fourth on the list, just from what I enjoyed and loved. It's a very Zelda-esque dungeon crawler type game. If you all haven't played it, please do. It's worth every penny. We had Psychonauts 2, which was my previous literal game of the year, until I played Halo Infinite in the campaign and had the total package of that. And speaking of Halo Infinite, we had Halo Infinite, which is my game of the year of 2021. We had Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 come out. We had It Takes Two, which won Game of the Year, although I didn't think it should have, but I thought it was definitely worthy of the nomination. I'm going to be playing that soon with my girl, by the way. Excellent game. That's not unique to Xbox. I just want to throw that out there, though. But we have Microsoft Flight Simulator. And we have, of course, the masterpiece that is Forza Horizon 5. We had Hades come to Game Pass. It's a lot. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some right now. That's the craziest thing. We even had the Crisis Remastered trilogy come out. Just in general, we had obviously the Yakuza Remastered collection coming out to the Xbox Game Pass. It's so much stuff that I'm pretty certain I'm missing out on so much more. That's the crazy thing. Yeah. And then obviously, we so much greatness that came from it. I know I'm missing out on things to name, but you couldn't be an Xbox gamer and just say that you were unsatisfied, in my honest opinion, because you just had a wealth of greatness coming toward you. And I hate to use that tag of greatness, but you had a wealth of goodness, I guess, come to you no matter which way it was, in multiple genres at that. As far as what I hated, I agree with our boy Gladiator here. Rockstar, I expect so much more from them. And to put out something they did, although I know they didn't develop it, but to put out something they did with their mainstay franchise to put that out like that in that state is completely unacceptable. I know we had the fortune of having San Andreas come to Xbox Gamepass, but the way it looked and played, is it really something to praise? I don't think it is. I mean, it looks like trash, and it plays largely the same. I know they did a little few control changes, but it's not much. It's just a disrespectful thing, not only to us as gamers, but to themselves and that franchise, really. And if Microsoft or Sony would have done that, they would have deserved as much hate that as Rockstar deserves for that, rather. As far as what's interesting, I'm interested in what Microsoft is doing for this year, and I think because of the promise we had for Game Pass of 2021, we have so much more to look forward to, and already we started off in style. I mean, Mass Effect Legendary Edition and, of course, Rainbow Six Extraction. So much more to come, right? I expect so much more greatness to come to Game Pass this year outside of the obvious of Redfall and Starfield, which will probably be a nominee for a Game of the Year of this year, by the way, as well. So that's my thoughts for the year of 2021 and going forward.
Yeah, bang on.
Hey, put some respect on It Takes Two, by the way. All right, I just gotta say that.
Absolutely. Great game. I don't want to diminish it. I didn't think it was Game of the Year for me, but I'm not mad at it for winning it either.
No, I'm playing with my son right now, and it's well, not right now because I'm doing a podcast, but you know what I mean. And it's fantastic. It's a great game. We're having a laugh, having a ball, and that's what games to me are about. And that's Xbox gaming. I'll just quickly do my year in review, and my year in review was obviously starting this podcast, but also playing through the MCC because I wasn't a massive Halo player. I played the CE, obviously the original. Who hasn't played that? But I didn't really follow through on the rest of the series, and didn't know a whole lot about the lore and didn't know a whole lot about it. So to sit down with Jedi and the rest of our boys and go through co-op and just do the MCC and Legendary was definitely the highlight of my year. What did I hate, man? Yeah, I kind of have to. I just the disrespectfulness of Rockstar putting that out in that state was. I'm not going to go into it too much more, but that was just like that kind of shit pisses me off. And I'll also say Battlefield 2042. To put that out, it just broke my heart. Like I think everyone should know by now, if you're coming through the podcast, that I was a massive Battlefield player. So I spent all my time playing Battlefield, and to be disrespected as a player and supporter of the franchise since its inception was just heartbreaking. And I'll never go back. I don't care how good they make the next one. They can go and get fucked. And yeah, we can swear on the show, Asa. And what was interesting and what did I love? Man, like you said, Game Pass, just the amount of games that I got to go through this year, it felt like I was an achievement hunter with all the cash in the world. I wasn't hunting achievements, but I was just playing games that I would never have played, I would never have bought. It's great, man. You can pick up a small game and you can knock it through. Like the Gunk, you can go through the Gunk in what it took me about 4 hours to go through that game, and like it was a cool little game. It wasn't amazing, but it was a bit different to what I would normally have played. And that to me, like you said, is the greatness of Game Pass. I would normally stick to FPSs. That's my bread and butter. But I'm so much more invested in other games now because I know I've got the opportunity to play them and I'm not worried about spending money on something I'm not going to like. And that's a great thing, to not have the fear to spend money on something, that you're not going to like and get to try it and put it down, pick it up the way you want. And the cloud, boy, did I get excited about the cloud when they finally brought that to Australia and they put it on console and you didn't have to download and you wanted to play a small game that worked with the cloud. I mean, you can't play FPSs. It's probably not a good idea, but the cloud is such a great thing for Game Pass. Like those little games that you get to you just dip in and dip out. Yep, I liked it. I finished it on the cloud and it was great. Or I didn't like it and I didn't spend like an hour downloading it. That's amazing. That's like we're living in the future. 2022. Pete, your year?
Yeah, look, I'm actually going to go back to I got my TV in October 2020. getting ready, 4K TV, 120 hertz, getting ready for my new console, which I got in December. I waited to play Cyberpunk because I didn't want to play it on the old console, even though it came out in September. So my year really starts in December. I played Cyberpunk. I know a lot of people didn't like that game, but I played it on my Series X, and I absolutely loved it. I played it in quality mode, so I got that, the visuals, absolutely gorgeous. Played Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Loved it, by the way. I just wanted to co-sign that with you. I'm sorry.
Yep. Cyberpunk's a great game. If don't believe all the negativity about that game, if you've got a Series X, it plays great. Look, maybe if you've waited this long, wait for the next gen upgrade, which should be coming fairly soon. But amazing game. Played Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I played Gears 5 Hivebusters, and I still think it's the best looking Series X game there is. There just wasn't enough said about that game. I absolutely loved it. Looks amazing. Then the first big third party deal of Game Pass and a story of what's to come, Outriders hit, and absolutely loved it, and showed how serious Microsoft and Xbox are on Game Pass. Phenomenal game, great deal done by Microsoft. It Takes Two, play that game. I played it with a friend and absolutely loved every minute of it. Also, one of my top 3 games of the year, Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I haven't played that game for a while, but to play the Legendary Edition, playing it in 60 frames, just amazing. Then Doom Eternal, also one of my games of the year. Series X finally started to show its power. Ray tracing mode, 120 FPS mode, absolutely amazing. Then I finally played Plague's Tale because it got another thing that we should really mention, the FPS boost. Got boosted to 60 frames a second. Amazing.
Playing on the screen right now.
And then, the second half of the year kicked in, and when Microsoft started to flex its muscles just around E3 time with Microsoft Flight Simulator, I think everybody's jaw dropped when they saw that game. Absolutely beautiful. I still remember flying over my house, landing the plane, just on my street and looking at my house in-game. Just absolutely took my breath away. Had a lot of fun with The Ascent, another game on Game Pass that I probably wouldn't have bought if it wasn't on Game Pass. Death's Door is my game of the year. Absolutely loved every second of that game. Absolutely amazing. Another game I wouldn't have bought, 12 Minutes. Very different game. Definitely wouldn't have tried it out if it was on Game Pass, but loved every minute of that too. Psychonauts 2. Then, me and Risket played the MCC, getting ready for Infinite. Went through the whole campaign, start to finish on Legendary. Just had a ball of a time. I love the Halo story, and it was great to share it with a good friend who, we started this podcast together. Far Cry 6, Back for Blood, and then, ending the year with 2 of the greatest games, Forza 5 and Halo Infinite. What a phenomenal year Xbox has had. What a phenomenal year for gaming. Been so much fun. My standouts for the year, it's starting with this podcast, meeting new friends, Risket, Umbra, everyone in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. We really do appreciate it. Just been fantastic, and it looks like that it's only going to get bigger and better from here on in, so can't wait. My negatives for the year, the fact that there's just so much hatred and vitriol between PlayStation, Xbox in the community and on Twitter. We are all gamers at the end of the day, and I think that we should really come together and just enjoy, the hobby that we love. And also Sony increasing the price to $70. I think that they made more than enough money. I think it was unnecessary, and I think the PlayStation community really should have stood up for themselves and said, no, that's too much. But that was my gaming. That was my year in review.
$70 is fine.
I was waiting for it. Yeah.
Co-signed by the way of meeting you guys and all the guys on Twitter and everything like that, and starting this podcast with you all too. Thank you all for that opportunity. And yeah, absolutely. I also want to, big up my OLED LG C1 since you talked about TVs. Yeah, got that too.
Asa, what did you love? What did you hate? What was interesting? And no, I did not purposefully play a stealth game and use it on the podcast. That was a pure accident. But I just the guys were ribbing me for not playing this and told me it was great. So yeah, it's all right. Yeah, it's all right.
It's torture to watch. Stealth games, yeah, not my thing. So, I mean, you lot have pretty much covered the year quite thoroughly there. Little points for my own personal one. So, Halo Infinite, for me, I've loved Halo forever. So to have that get back on form has been great for me. I've said before on our show that it's not my game of the year, but it's my favorite game of the year because it's great for me as a Halo fan, even though there are objectively flaws with it. Other highlight for me was Microsoft finally sitting down and clearing the ambiguity around ZeniMax and whether those games will be exclusive or not, because that conversation got massively tedious. The ambiguity that they sowed themselves was just like winding me up. Can we please not? So I'm glad that got cleared up. My year got better after that. Things that I didn't like. There's loads more things I did like, by the way. Loads of games that I did like. But you've already pointed out lots of people, pretty much everybody has said Rockstar's handling of Grand Theft Auto remasters. And it's not just the fact that the games came out bad, it's the way that they treated their own community around it, going after modders and making them take all of their hard work down and things like that. That was slimy and horrible.
Who did a better job?
The other thing I didn't like.
Who did a better job with it?
Yeah, the modders did a better job in many cases, yeah. And another thing that I really didn't like was 12 minutes. It's one of the only games I've ever played that was painful. Like I hated it. I played it.
It was different,
and I hated it.
You mean even?
I never hate games.
What you talking? So Lawnmower Simulator and 12 minutes.
I'll take that any day over 12 minutes. I will mow that grass. You give me 100 hours on Lawnmower Simulator over a single 12-minute run on 12 minutes.
Oh, that is out of control. Do you know what I found really interesting, though? The only mention of Cyberpunk in this entire conversation was positive. And that was massive. That was huge. I bought that game and returned it because it was I didn't play it on quality mode, Pete, and it wasn't great. I wasn't enjoying myself, and it didn't do what it promised to do. Like Fable, when Fable released, you remember it was well received, but it didn't do what it promised to do. So there was a bit of kick up about that. No, but when
Peter Molyneux was famous for that, though. He's famous for overpromising when it comes to those games.
Yeah, absolutely. When he released Fable 2, he actually did cover some of the bases of the things that he promised to do, and he did. He had a good go of it. And I don't think anyone complained about Fable 2 because possibly because they knew what they were in for because they had already played Fable 1. But Cyberpunk promised to do all of these things, and it was so broken it was laughable. Like, do you remember the first 6 months of the year were mostly Cyberpunk memes? That's all. That's everything that we got was Cyberpunk memes.
It's still a great game, but
is it though, or is it just boring and not as good as The Witcher?
it's definitely not boring.
Well, look, I mean,
People just expected so much because of The Witcher 3, and yes, Witcher 3 is my favorite game of all time, so I was expecting a lot as well.
Yeah.
But there's just some of those side missions in that game, you know, the crucifixion side mission, or the one where you're the mayor's wife and they're in their brains and they're watching them through the mirrors in their house, and they're just not fetch me quests. Like, there's so much to that game. There's so much side story. It's a great game. Yes, it's flawed. But I played it on the Series X on quality mode. The world's there. The amount of people in the city is there. I really enjoyed it.
I'm going to co-sign that with Pete again. I think it is definitely flawed, and I don't fault anybody for feeling how they feel about that. I see you being devoured by rats, by the way, on a plague sale there. But just want to say, I played it on the 1X when I first played through it, and I played through it 4 times. I have 459 hours into that game, and I loved every single minute. Loved every single minute, and I'm waiting for the next gen patch so I can play it on my Series X again.
Me too.
Hey, look, I found
That
it.
game
I
is
can tell you guys that I played it on
hard, but it's
PC with
great.
my 3080, and the thing is amazing. So once it gets that next gen patch, I think a lot of people will be really happy with the game.
Absolutely.
But with that said, I still think that it didn't hit what it promised. I think it's just very similar to just being a Witcher, but in a cyberpunk world.
It didn't even hit those heights of The Witcher, though. Let's definitely
No, but I'm saying like game style, you know.
Look, I felt like it was a Ubisoft game reskinned, and I'm just saying that because Pete would lose his shit. I can just see him on the other side going.
There ain't no fetch quests in Cyberpunk, mate.
Yeah, that's all there are. But anyway, so look, we'll move on to the next thing, which is a bit contentious, and I hope that speculation's still here. If you're still here, Fun Speculation, you brought this up last night in your podcast, and I wanted to talk about this, and this is very, very contentious, and I don't know if Asa will want to touch this with the 10-foot cattle prod, but we're doing it anyway. Now, if you look on your screen, but personally, I'm really tired of strong male leads being replaced by female leads where there seems to be no reason to do so. I would like to see strong female IPs, new IPs come out, tailor-made for those strong female IPs. I wouldn't want to see Tomb Raider and Lara Croft be replaced by a man. I would not want to see that. That's not the game. That's not Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider is Lara Croft. And to me, Splinter Cell is Sam Fisher. And if you're replacing him with something other than, I don't know, Sam Fisher, maybe I'm getting old. Maybe I'm getting grumpy. I don't know. But to me, it's not right. If it makes sense in the story. Okay.
Risk. Just want to say this. General C said audio is gone.
Yeah, I saw that too, but I think we're back now.
Okay.
Hopefully.
I think when you switch the screen to the Splinter Cell picture.
Oh, yeah, that's probably it. Sorry, General C. And I was on my rant. I was like going for it. Look, what I'm saying is that Splinter Cell has released a book. Ubisoft has released a book where they are taking Sarah, the son of Sam Fisher, is taking up the mantle of Sam Fisher. I don't want to see these leads be replaced. I don't want to see Lara Croft be replaced. I don't want to see Sam Fisher be replaced. I don't want to see Indiana Jones be replaced with some whiny little boy. I don't want to see that happen to these IPs, these great IPs. Do you have an opinion on this?
Especially after being waiting so long for a Splinter Cell game, and then they go and do that on us. Like, wow, the community will not be happy.
I don't think.
I mean, they've been teasing us with Sam Fisher, being put in every other game except his own. For them to do that would be just, I don't know. That'd be a terrible move.
I don't think that that they're going to do it this game, but it's got to be a transition to somewhere. But why do we transition to the daughter? You would think that Sam, like from everything you know about Sam would not want his daughter in that position. He doesn't want his daughter, like one of the games was about saving his daughter. Why would he want to put his daughter in danger? Why?
Absolutely agree.
Women can think for themselves sometimes. It's allowed. It's not up to Sam Fisher what his daughter does.
No. This is a misogynistic podcast, Asa. We do not allow that. No, seriously.
Nope, don't put me on that one. Nope.
Woman? No way.
Led by Gladiator, he told us that's what we're
Glad he's not
directing.
getting canceled 2022. Nope.
Just change his name.
Right.
Asa,
All women are welcome 2022.
Asa, what do you think? You had a bit of an opinion that goes against what I'm.
I know. I get what you're saying in general about sometimes it feeling a bit forced when characters are brought in that way to like get a bit more diversity. I'm all for, and I think you pretty much saying the same as well. You're all for more diverse characters, but you don't like to see it shoehorned into existing IPs that weren't necessarily written that way. Splinter Cell, it's more strange to me that the Tom Clancy name, he's an author that was known for books, and it's just weird to me that Ubisoft are releasing a book with an author's name that's got nothing to do with the author. It's just a strange situation.
Yeah. But he is dead. He did die, so he probably can't. He did die. He can't say much about it.
No, but it's still strange use of the IP because I thought they were licensed to make videos, and it's been said for a while that they've done terrible things with the video games. Like that's not stayed remotely true to what the books were about. I've never read the books. I barely know how to read. But I didn't think they were about like alien slime monsters and things like that. So
yeah, definitely.
Books
not.
Ubisoft writing a book and featuring the daughter. I'm not going to read it. I don't overly care. They're going to milk that franchise in every way that they're permitted to. This is just doing it further in an unexpected direction because Ubisoft aren't a book company.
Yeah, but what if that's a step in the direction of replacing Sam Fisher with his daughter? How do we feel?
It could well be, but I mean, besides the fact that like she shouldn't be allowed to think for herself, as we've already established, Sam Fisher was like pretty old in the first game, right? So
yeah.
The bloodline angle is a bit tired, right? Like it being a family member at all is more of a problem than it being his daughter. Like it's just
it's less likely.
We have a different spy if we're going to, yeah. I don't know. That's how fiction works, isn't it?
Exactly. It's less likely to happen. Like, come on, he's not like Lara Croft, where he grew up and his dad was like going on Tomb Raider missions and he just discovered it and he wanted to go find his father's stuff. And it's not how that works. You're talking about like, you know, deep state stuff. They're not like looking at it as like, well, he was a good spy. We'll go get his daughter. I don't think that is how it works. WNCC 1701P said, as I said a second ago, Lara Croft was a replacement for Indiana Jones. She might have been, and at the end of the day, that's a different IP, and that's fine.
Yes, thematically, yeah, sure she is, but she didn't replace him in that story of Indiana Jones. She's not Indiana Jones or something or whatever you want to call her, right? She's not Lady Jones or something like that. It's just a separate IP with the inspiration from Indiana Jones. But the thing is,
a great character.
She is in her own right, but we know that she's a derivative of Indiana Jones, but she's not replacing him. I'm with Risk here when it comes to that, and I've been that way for a long time. I feel the same way when it comes to legacy characters in comics. If you're going to have a legacy character replace the main character, it has to make sense. It makes literally no sense to have his daughter come in his position, and I know from playing those games, Sam would absolutely not be for that. So it makes no sense for her to be jumping into that and him to be like, all right, Grim, blah, blah, blah. It makes no sense. What they should have done, in my opinion.
Though.
Yeah, you know, it's just...
We've got slime monsters in Tom Clancy, so his daughter's all right in that capacity, right?
True, but narratively, it just doesn't fit. It's like, where did that come from all of a sudden? To me, it would have been better, like when they did with Blacklist, when they replaced... Michael Ironside voice, and for good reason. When I kind of find out about him having cancer and things of that nature, is that they should have just had a new agent come in with Sam as the backup, maybe like taking the position of lead of the third echelon. That would have made sense. But to sit there and have him still be Sam Fisher, that was even the wrong direction. When you know that's not him, essentially, right? Voicing him. And I feel the same way when it comes to having a replacement with his family. It just everything he was fighting for was to protect them, and of course the U.S. So why then would he be like, "All right, yeah, you go ahead and continue my legacy"? Just doesn't add up.
Yeah, no, it doesn't fit the story.
Well said, Umbra.
That's my issue with it. How do you can't see the CIA going, "Let's go and pluck his daughter out of the fold," and like put her in. It's just exactly what you said. Like where you said Blacklist. As soon as you said Blacklist, you lost me for a couple seconds there. But when you kept on, that was bang on. That was bang on. You say Blacklist though, and I'm not a happy camper. They ruined the Splinter Cell franchise with that game, and that's why we haven't seen one for so long. Gladiator, do you have an opinion on this?
Of course, my opinion is y'all some old dudes, all right? Let the new blood come in, all right? Allow for the diversity to happen, okay? If it makes sense, let it make sense. But if it don't make sense, it'll fail. I use right now an example I could use for anybody who's into the Marvel shows. You already see a passing of the baton happening with Hawkeye to a female Hawkeye. And I'm totally fine with it as long as they can make it work. If the story works that Sam Fisher's daughter, maybe she, wanted to follow father's footsteps and, he's against it, but she still does it anyways. This is 2022, the year of the woman, okay? And a woman can do whatever she pleases, okay?
None of my watch
I just want good stories, okay? That's it. But I will say that sometimes when they try to replace certain characters, it just doesn't work. Even if it is a male to male. I'm going to show a little bit of my age over here. I don't know if you guys remember a show called 24, but when they try to move that forward with a completely different actor than the main actor, it tanked because it wasn't the essence of the original character. So I think that maybe sometimes the IP should be put at rest if you're not going to keep the main character going forward. But if they want to experiment, especially if they want to put a person of color, or they want to put a woman, or they want to put something completely different, I'm all for it. All right, diversity, baby. Y'all too old and conservative. That's all I'll say.
Then why don't you just make a new IP, Gladiator? Just make a new IP. I mean, Splinter Cell is Sam Fisher. If you want to put a woman in a spy game, it's called Perfect Dark. No one's complaining. That there's going to be a woman lead in that game. No one's complaining, but we will complain if you change Splinter Cell into away from Sam Fisher. Then yes, I will complain. Because Splinter Cell is Sam Fisher and vice versa.
Look,
this is easy for me because I don't like Splinter Cell. So I'm just like, yeah, change what you like.
Remove him from this podcast post haste.
Blocked. Look, man, I think Umbra should be the new Sam Fisher. But what I'm saying is like, all right, dude, man, put someone who fits the mold, right, into that IP. Like, have a new agent, man. Don't have his daughter. We don't need that shit. Like, that's not good. That doesn't work. That does not work. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna read the book just so I can shit all over it, but it's not gonna work. I already know that this book is gonna be trash and a massive dumpster fire, and it will be a dumpster fire because I'll throw it in the dumpster whilst it's on fire.
Of course, it'll get praise from the wannabe women supporters like Gladiator. He'll praise it even though it's trash, of course.
I love women. Okay, how dare you?
Yeah, exactly right. Snoozy said here on screen, it's not being conservative, it's just being realistic. Like, give me a story that makes sense and I'll be happy.
Realistic, a super spy that's going all over the world and doing all crazy stuff. Like, what are we doing? It's already a crazy ass story.
Haven't you seen Mission Impossible?
Whatever you want.
That's real. Mission Impossible is real. It's real stuff. We're getting close to the end of the show here, but there is one more thing that popped up whilst we were in show that Grey Monad pointed out for us, and it's pretty cool to hear, and I'm excited about it. Jedi Fallen Order 2. The reveal is coming before June, and it might launch late 2022, apparently. So we're going to get it this year, from what they're saying. I'll give you a quick read of the article. It looks like everyone's favorite newly introduced Jedi Padawan, Cal Kestis, might be coming back to the fore with his Stinger Mantis ship and his ragtag bunch of followers in tow. If new reports are to be believed, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order 2 is being prepared for a pre-E3 reveal with a potential launch date at the end of 2022. Now, that's pretty exciting. I know that Pete has absolutely no interest in Star Wars, so we will skip over him and go straight to Ace. Ace, are you interested in seeing a new Jedi Fallen Order from EA?
For sure. The first one was really good, right? So, of course,
Game Pass.
When you get a good game, you look forward to the sequel. Game Pass, not day one. It's an EA game, so.
But it will be there.
Nice as it would be, it will come to Game Pass eventually. Which is funny, by the way, that we say this is like not particularly relevant, so I won't say much. But the Mass Effect Legendary Edition that came to Game Pass came to EA Play and is on PlayStation as well. It's funny how Game Pass takes all of the spotlight there, and nobody cares that it's on anything else. But Jedi Fallen Order.
Are you saying it's on EA Play on PlayStation?
Oh yeah.
Whose side are you on? Yeah. Whose side are you on?
I was emphasizing the power of Game Pass with that statement. Like, look, who cares that it's on PlayStation? Nobody cares. Mm-hmm. See, Xbox podcast. Woo.
Nobody cares.
Wait. The question. Jedi Fallen Order. Yeah, I really liked the first one.
Yeah, okay.
Respawn make good games. I'm looking forward to the second one. And I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that it's coming, but yeah.
Well, it's a surprise coming this year, though. I don't think we'd see it till next year.
It's a surprise that it's coming so early.
Yeah, if it comes this year, absolutely. Nobody would have guessed that. I've heard no one speak of that being that soon. But I think, obviously, if it does, I mean, it'd be monumental. I mean, the first one doesn't get enough love, in my opinion. I think some gave it like a 7, and some people rated it lower than that. I'm like, wow, that game is legitimately great. And it just showed how good the Apex creators, I can't remember the name for some strange reason. I'm drawing a blank. Respawn, thank you. It shows how great they are as developers to make such a departure from what they usually make to make such a great game. And Star Wars game at that pleased Star Wars fans. It's not an easy task. I mean, because Star Wars fans are worse than Halo fans, which is a monumental achievement in itself. But yeah, I'm really hyped for it. If they come out this year with it, absolutely. I'll be really psyched to play it. Like Asa pointed out, obviously it wouldn't come straight to Game Pass, or would it? I mean, I guess it depends on Microsoft, right? In the end.
Or would it?
What are they willing to put their money on? We'll see. But it coming this year it would be surprising to me, and I think we're oversaturated with greatness coming this year already. So, sheesh, can you imagine?
Gladiator, are you keen to play Jedi Fallen Order on your Switch?
If they have it cloud, streaming, sure, why not, right? I'm definitely not playing that native on that hardware. But I will say this, Umbra, please put respect on the Star Wars coalition. Don't put a bad name on us, because we only get upset about you messing with the main timeline of stuff. But all that extra stuff, maybe give it to us. We love it. All right.
You all are like the Philadelphia
Eagles.
Philadelphians. You all, no, I want to say Philadelphians. Philadelphians in general will hate on their teams. They'll hate on your team. They'll hate on draft picks. They'll hate on everything. They'll hate their neighbor. I've talked to a bunch of Philadelphians, and they hate everything and everybody. That's Star Wars.
Listen,
if you make
we love everything Star Wars, baby. What's one Star Wars property we don't love?
You love
outside of Star Wars. Last Jedi.
There you go.
That's not Star Wars. That's not Star Wars.
It's the best Star Wars that was ever made. I don't know where
you're looking for violence today.
See, now you raise his blood pressure by saying that. Yeah,
Star Wars Johnson should be ashamed of himself.
Yeah. Star Wars fans are notorious for hating Star Wars. They love Star Wars and love to hate it. It's crazy. It's really, really wild to me. I'm a Star Wars fan, but I'm not a far gone one either. So I don't know. Gladiator might be a little wild.
But again, you made my point. Like, once you mess in that main timeline stuff, there's a lot of room for contention there, right? Like, I'm not even gonna try to defend that. But any type of games and great things that you bring out, things that explore like side world and all that stuff, bro, Star Wars fans are all about that. Knights of the Old Republic, the Old Republic games. Jedi Fallen Order was a fantastic game, and it fit into the lore, and it was cool how they made it fit into the overall lore. I love the fact that it was like a Souls light game. That's kind of really what it was. So look, more of it. Nobody's gonna hate on that.
Oh, look, absolutely. Yeah. No one's gonna hate on that.
Line where people typically start to hate. That is true.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, unless you take WNCC's take on it, 1701, he said Star Wars is crap compared to Star Trek.
He said he likes both.
Ooh.
He said he likes both. Depends on what Star Trek as well. After the next gen, they completely ruined it. I think, especially when they destroyed Vulcan.
Are you just a hater of anything that's new, Pete? Like in those Star Trek, Star Wars universes?
No. When they try and stuff around with what the core principles of what Star Trek and Star Wars are about, I get upset, and that's the same with gaming as well. Like when you try and remove Splinter Cell from Sam Fisher. Yeah, that's just how I feel about everything. To be honest,
there's nothing wrong with Leia flying through space after she's already died and been blown up, and then coming back to life and having Star Wars powers. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that is stellar writing, and it was inserted in such a way that it was believable.
Me and you were going to talk off podcast, my friend.
I love that show.
I'm with the General C. Give me a Mandalorian game, absolutely, and I'll be satisfied.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
I agree. Or bring Star Wars 1317 back, or whatever it was called, 1717. Yeah, that game looked amazing.
Did anyone else kill this Amica as often as?
Yeah, I'm watching, and you got her killed so many times. I started to feel bad for the poor girl.
Yeah, look, I'm just learning. It's I'm only 5 hours into the game, and that's when it becomes good, apparently. Right. So moving forward, that was a fantastic podcast, guys. Thank you all for coming. If you are still here, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button to our chat. All of you guys make this what it has been. It has been an absolute ball. That's why it has gone this. I think it's the longest show ever because I'm just having a ball. Might have something to do with the beer. Don't know. Could be that I've got swine flu. I don't know. It could be that it's a great show. One of the three. To our guests, Gladiator, it's always amazing to have you on. I love your takes. I don't love all of them, but most of them. I love how you deliver them. Asa, the superstar, the champion, the big boss, the man. Thank you for coming on the stream. You have made my week, year, month, even. One of those. 3.
I am all of those things, but I was hoping for something more regal, like Your Highness or something.
Your Highness.
That was silly. Of course, I'm happy to be here. It's a good time. Thanks for the invitation.
Now, we'll go to Umbra and Jedi. Guys, it's always great to have you coming back and making this show what it is as well. You guys help me along, and it's amazing. So let's tell everyone where they can find you, Umbra, and what you're up to.
Well, you guys can find me as always on Twitter. I'm a little bit distant for now, but I will be returning back more to being more active in the next week. You can find me under Infinite Umbra on Twitter, and of course on Xbox Live if you're, even keeled and respectable under Superhavoc. And though the tag says PlayStation tag nope in the description, I actually do have a PlayStation account, but there's no use of really putting it out there since I will never play games with you all there, and it'll only be for single player games. So, but yeah, it's also Super Havoc on PlayStation, Super_Havoc. But again, I will never play with you all there because, Xbox has that sewn up for me. But I want to thank you all for coming through. Again, always, of course, thank you to Pete and Risk for, inviting me in as you have. I want to thank our guests, Asa and Gladiator, aka Ness, for coming through. And you're always welcome. Asa, really appreciate you, brother. I've been watching your shows for a while here and there, and you also, kind of globe-trotting on other podcasts. And I know that it's really late where you're at, so I really appreciate it. I know we all do appreciate you coming through to, give us your time, even though I'm sure you're dead tired and like, come on, end this shit. But Gladiator, even though you put up this facade of being pro-woman and everything like that and everything, but behind the scenes are actually very highly misogynistic. I want to thank you too for coming through, brother, and spreading your slander for Xbox as you tend to do. No, I'm just joking, but appreciate you guys for coming through, really. And thank you all in the chat for coming through, and of course my elite squad as always for coming through. I see you, Steph.
Jedi, tell us where we can find you, what you're up to. what you've been
Find
playing.
me on Xbox at JediKnightPete. You can find me on Twitter at JediKnightPete. I'm still playing Halo, waiting for the Anacrusis or Extraction to come out. Finished the game part, the battle pass on Halo, but I'm still playing that. I absolutely love that game. Huge shout out to everyone in the chat. You guys make the show. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. Umbra, Risk It, New Year, only going to get bigger and better. To the Gladiator, aka Gaming Since Nest, second time being on the show, mate. Thank you so much again. I heard that you are going to be starting your own podcast soon. All the best with that, mate. Please come back onto the show. We love your take. And Asa, I've been watching Game On Daily, basically for ages. I love it. I love the source. Thank you so much for coming on our little podcast. Really appreciated your take. Please come back.
For sure. No, that's like, it's embarrassing for me. Of course I'll come on. Risk is always around supporting everything that I'm doing as well. And all of you, it's been great to meet you all if I haven't already. I know most of you have been around in our chats as well. So happy to be here. Thanks everyone for being so kind about it.
And thanks for being here so
I just
late.
want to shout out to Game On Daily on the website. So if you don't know, it's probably the best place where you can get all gaming news, not just Xbox. It's just so well done, that website, and they give independent journalists a chance. Check that out. And like I said, Game On Daily podcast as well. It's a great time. Check that out. That's where you can find Asa.
And thank you for staying on so late. It's super late here as well, so I completely understand how late it is for you. And also, go and check out Ace's Twitch. We have a great time there. He has a great time mowing the lawn. It's amazing. It is one of the greatest Twitches I've ever watched. It's the only Twitch I watch, to be honest. And he is a great time. So go watch his Twitch, every single one of you, or I will find you. And Gladiator, again, mate, thank you for coming on. It's amazing to have you on. I love your takes. I can't wait to be invited on your podcast so I can tear things up and meet some of your guests. That's going to be absolutely solid. Tell us where we can find you, what you're up to, and what your plans are for the future.
Thank you, first of all, for having me here. It is always great cutting it up. Let me just say I am the last of the true neutrals. So it's great to have that perspective from the Xbox, heavy side. But you guys can definitely find me on Twitter at the Gladiator, all one word. Same thing on Twitch as well, too. And I am looking to, we're working on doing a podcast as well that will be more tailored to that multi-platform gamers, just trying to keep everything as positive and as real as possible. Not too much fanboyisms, but in the end of the day, we all love gaming, and that's why I love coming on the show, because there's always so much great passion over here, even though Umbra tries to slander me whenever he can, because I love women, okay? And I'm all about women. And don't you dare say that I'm not about women. So with that being said, thank you guys for having me. Asa, nice meeting you over here. Pete, thanks for having me as well. And Risk It, every time I see you on Twitter, man, you always risking it, brother. And I love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be dialing back the riskiness on Twitter. I think it's getting a little bit out of control when you get 3 days worth of responses and you got to read in 5 minutes. Absolutely fantastic to have you all on the show. Thank you for coming. Thanks to the chat. And this has been one of the best shows I've ever done. Super excited. I could do another one just after, but I'm not going to. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for turning up to Xbox Infinite.
Later, guys.
Peace.